Get ready to hear the truth about America on a show that's not immune to the facts with your host, Dan Bongino.
All right, welcome to the Dan Bongino Show. Producer Joe, how are you today?
I'm doing well, young Daniel. Good to go.
Young Dan. I ain't feeling so young these days. I got to go to the doctor today. This has become an evergreen topic on my show all the time. Dan Bongino. It's the Dan Bongino Medical Malady Hour.
We were just talking about AARP, too.
We were with your co-host, Dr. Joe Armacon. What's your problem? Today, my elbows bother me, Dr. Joe. Really? What exactly is bothering you? Is it throbbing? Is it an acute pain? Is it a dull pain? Oh, man. I can't. It's just hysterical how I'm 44. I feel like I'm 84. All right, I got a stacked show for you today. We had some really stunning information last night, again, from John Solomon, who I told you from the Hill knows the whole story about Spygate, Russiagate, the collusion hoax. I've told you from the start. He dropped another bombshell last night, which proves a point Joe and I have been making for a long time, that Bob Mueller is the cover-up artist. That's what he's here to do. So I'm going to sum it up this way for you. I wrote this down. Bob Mueller, he's here to hide the players, and he's here to hide the game. So we'll get to that. I also want to get to some big movement on the potential February 15th government shutdown date and why that matters in relation to the State of the Union, and also the new socialism, what the Democrats are really doing, so you understand that this is an actual threat. So don't go anywhere. All right, today's show brought to you absolutely delicious. Put the mug down. My kids loved it too. It was February. If you order before today, % savings. Save yourself the grief. Shoot on the show. The benefits of political capital. We've talked about it all the time. How, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to be overly dramatic about this, but power, the way we traditionally think about it through elected positions, is a myth. It's a mythical concept. And I think what's happening in Virginia right now is an indicator of that. Let me give you a perfect example, Joe. Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia, who still has not resigned, who was caught in a scandal with photos with a Ku Klux Klan outfit and a guy with blackface in there on his yearbook page. Joe, do you think Ralph Northam has any power right now?
I think his bank account's pretty empty there, Dano.
You see exactly where I'm going. Joe's reading my mind, bringing up the political bank account. Yes. Now, according to the traditional model of elected governance in the state of Virginia and our system of federalism, Ralph Northam should be one of the most powerful men in the country. He's a governor of a powerful state located near the epicenter of power, Washington, D.C. The Virginia suburbs house a lot of the government workers who work in D.C., yet Ralph Northam is about as powerless right now, and candidly speaking, as Joe and I. And when I say powerless, I mean powerless in the political sense, not the ability to move minds.
Right.
Political power through elected office is a myth. Political power through a political bank account and the accumulation of political capital in that bank account is not a myth. It's very real. Why do I bring this up? Because I was watching cable news this morning before we came on the air, Joe and I, and they were talking about how all of a sudden, Joe, after President Trump's powerful State of the Union address where he had nearly 70% approval, what happened? Well, we're looking at a February 15th shutdown, for the federal government if they don't come to a deal on the budget. And all of a sudden, Joe, Nancy Pelosi is willing to come to the table now and start discussing some border security measures that were previously off the table. Gee, why do you think that happened today? And the answer is, again, yeah, I know, Joe's scratching his head. The answer is obvious. Trump's State of the Union speech, as I said to you yesterday, had the ability to do, not just talk. It is the do that matters. And the do part of these speeches that matters is the ability to move public perception of how much political capital you have in your bank account. Trump made a heavy deposit in his political bank account. Listen, I don't want to over dramatize the effects of it. These things come and go. People's approval ratings, the president and otherwise go up and down. Something could happen tomorrow that could knock it down a few points. We could get great job numbers next quarter that could up it a few points. The point is, President Trump's speech was a game changer, at least in the short term. The political bank account matters. He made a massive deposit in his political bank account that has deeply impacted the Democrat political strategic calculus. They don't have a simple path going forward right now that they had a few weeks ago when they felt they had him in a corner due to President Trump saying at the time that he was going to take the mantle for the government shutdown. They felt like they could pin it politically on him and that was a withdrawal from his political bank account. This State of the Union speech was powerful. There's no denying. Listen, folks, denying it on the liberal side, you're just making yourself look foolish. Denying the fact that the speech was powerful based on pure metrics, public polling, the reception he got, even amongst certain people in the Never Trump crowd who are starting to acknowledge that it was a really good speech. You ignoring it does you no good. It makes you look like a darn fool, to be candid. It moved the political needle in a direction we needed, and we now have the chance to finally get some political action done because it's about building that political bank account, building your political capital. Being in an elected position and assuming that automatically equals political power is a myth I would really like you to dispel. I can't emphasize to you enough the importance of building a political capital bank account. It's the only analogy I can do that makes sense is a financial one. And that's built through legislative successes, good economic numbers, public approval ratings. That's how that works. That's how you fix this situation. President Trump did a really good job in his speech. So I just wanted to throw that in there before we get to the other material in the show. All right. Some incredible news last night from John Solomon on Fox. He was on the Hannity show last night. You're back? There we go. Joe Armacaugh's back. What happened there? We missed you for a second there?
Man. Something happened in the interweb. It goofed up between us.
In the interwebs?
Yeah.
Someone asked me in our new... ladies and gentlemen, getting a lot of questions about the video, by the way. Joe's got a lot of books in the background of it. No, he hasn't read every one of those books, Joe, obviously. But the video, we'll be putting some clips on our YouTube channel. So you can check that out. We are the verified YouTube channel. Just put Dan Bongino Show. It comes right up with the one with the check mark next to it. We're also putting some clips up on Twitter. I'm at DBongino. We'll be putting up the whole show shortly. So I've been getting a lot of questions. I appreciate that. But right for now, we're putting up some clips so you can see what it looks like and what we've been working on. It's taken up a lot of our time, but we want to get it perfect for you. So we're putting up some teaser clips. But getting back to what happened last night, Bob Mueller. So the Mueller investigation is slowly but surely falling apart. Yeah, Solomon goes on Sean Hannity's show last night, and Solomon knows everything. I've told you that. I think he has a good perspective on what's going on with this case. And Solomon is indicating again how Bob Mueller is the cover-up artist. I told you this. Bob Mueller's purpose to come into this investigation was to sweep all of the mess underneath the rug by doing two things. Saving the reputation of the Department of Justice and FBI, who frankly destroyed their reputations by spying on a presidential candidate and a president. And also to make sure the attention and the heat stays on Donald Trump so the attention and the heat can stay away from the FBI, DOJ, Hillary Clinton, and others. Now, what did Solomon say? Joe, you got that clip ready?
Yeah,
he goes on Hannity last night, and he was talking about Bob Mueller's tenure during the FBI and the tenure immediately preceding Bob Mueller's time at the FBI, where there were some major league abuses at this very specific court, the FISA court, Joe, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, which was used to spy on Donald Trump. And here's what Solomon said about Mueller getting hauled in front of the court.
The FBI, before and during Robert Mueller's tenure, submitted FISAs that materially omitted exculpatory or other information essential to the court.
Whoa. Evidence they had?
Yes. I'll give you one example that the court cited that really smoked the court. They're really upset about this. They wanted a FISA. They didn't tell the court that the guy they were putting a FISA on was one of their own informants.
What would happen to me if I lied to a federal judge or lied in a warrant application?
You'd either be in contempt of court or probably in prison prosecuted for perjury.
Folks, what have I been telling you? Mueller is the perfect guy to be brought in by Rod Rosenstein after this whole spying debacle and abuse of the FISA court, where they got a warrant to spy on the Trump team using fake information in the dossier. It was real information, but the information wasn't authentic.
Right.
I told you Mueller is the cover-up guy. Joe, he's been brought in to cover up the players and to cover up the game.
Yep.
Let's go in. I had to write this out because I don't want to miss any of this. First, let me just cite a bit from John Solomon's wonderful piece in the Hill, which will be in the show notes. It's a must-read today. Please check it out. It's a piece in the Hill in my show notes at Bongino.com. You subscribe to my email list. Paula has a piece up on the video now. Mueller hauled before the secret FISA court to address FBI abuses in 2002. That was said to Congress. Who told Congress this? An FBI lawyer by the name of Tricia Anderson was brought in to talk to Congress under oath about what happened with the FISA abuse process, the FBI going into a court to get a warrant to spy on Trump. Now, Tricia Anderson, quoting from the piece, who recently stepped down as the FBI's principal deputy general counsel, told House investigators last year in an interview that early in Mueller's FBI tenure, nearly 2 decades ago, the FISA court summoned the new director to appear before the judges to address concerns about the extensive cheating on FISA warrants. Oh, there you go. So you bring in a guy who has been hauled in front of the court before, Bob Mueller's the FBI director, accused of cheating on FISA warrants by the agency he runs to investigate Trump in a case where it's alleged that the FISA court was used to get a warrant via cheating. Perfect guy, Joe. Perfect. No, no conflict of interest there, folks. Yeah. Don't you worry at all. Nothing to see here. Everybody move along. Everyone. No big deal. Nothing to see here. Here's Tricia Anderson's quote. It preceded my time at the FBI, but as I understood it, there was a pattern of some incidents of omission that were of concern to the FISA court that resulted in Director Mueller actually appearing before the FISA court himself. This is great. Other sources who worked for Mueller at the time told Solomon that the court's concerns arose in 2002 and 2003 after 9/11 when the FISA court learned the FBI had omitted materials, listen to this, folks, from FISA warrant applications in more than 75 terrorism cases that dated back to the late 1990s. Wait, there's a part 2 to this that I haven't even gotten to yet. But let's just hammer down and isolate part 1 and analyze this here.
All right.
Why appoint Bob Mueller as a special counsel to investigate Trump? Because Mueller is tied to the players and he's tied to the game. Mueller was the FBI director when this FISA court process was in its infancy and was developing a set of procedures used to spy on potential terrorists and others. The fact that the FISA court process was abused to spy on Donald Trump, who better to understand the abuses than the guy who was in charge when the abuses were happening? Do you see my point? This guy's got a vested interest, Bob Mueller, in making all this stuff go away. He's not going to expose FISA abuses. He was part of it, according to the FBI's own principal deputy counsel. Who better to sweep this stuff under the rug? Now you wonder why they keep arresting people on the Trump team for nonsense and process crimes, and they can't find collusion. Yet while the Mueller probe goes on indefinitely, because Mueller's job is to keep the heat on Donald Trump and to brush all this stuff aside. This is so simple when you look at this. Now, who else? So he's not only connected to the game, and when I say the game, I don't mean it flippantly. The game here is the IC, the intelligence community. And components of the upper level of the FBI clearly don't want to let go of this star chamber-like FISA court where they can get warrants to spy on Americans and the proceedings aren't adversarial. In other words, Joe, there is no ability for you to object to it or to get your lawyer in there. If they want to spy on you, Joe Armacost, in a foreign intelligence surveillance court, you have no ability to even get your lawyer to defend yourself because you won't even know.
Yep.
It is a secret court. Clearly, people in the upper echelons of law enforcement in the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the intelligence community don't want to let this asset go. What would damage this asset in a catastrophic, potentially critical, fatal manner? What would damage the reputation of the FISA court in the American public eye, Joe? Revelations that this court was used to spy on political people, not terrorists.
Absolutely.
Is everybody seeing where I'm going with this? So what better guy to bring in to sweep that under the rug to make sure this asset maintains its integrity with the American public than Bob Mueller, a guy who was the FBI director when they were disciplined for committing the same abuses? Of course he's not going to highlight this. He'd be highlighting himself. He has a vested interest, Mueller, in making all of this go away and keeping the attention on Donald Trump and making the public believe that this is about Donald Trump and not about what it's really about, which is what, Joe? Using a United States, you're darn right, court to spy on political opponents.
Yeah.
Now, let's do a little backtracking so we understand why what Solomon said last night was so profound and important.
Cool.
Mueller has to hide the players. Because to hide the players, he does hide the game. And by hiding the game, he hides the players. The FISA abuse process, using the FISA court to spy on Trump, had players in it. Players who did what? Players who signed the FISA warrants, players who authorized the investigation, players who acted as secret back channels to funnel information into the FBI through the DOJ. Mueller's connected to these players. So again, he's the perfect guy to make sure the players in the game get hidden. Let's go through them one by one. Rod Rosenstein. How is he connected to Mueller? Rosenstein is the United States attorney for Maryland. I worked for him when I was an agent in the Baltimore field office.
Right.
When they processed the precursor to the Uranium One case, where the FBI, under Bob Mueller's lead, had an informant indicating that the Russians were helping the Iranians build their nuclear program and were using access to our nuclear energy products to do so. Some of the same people involved in that Uranium One deal financed $500,000 payments to Bill Clinton and the Clinton Foundation to give speeches overseas. Ladies and gentlemen, there was an obvious corruption investigation here. And what happened? The answer is nothing happened. Rosenstein pled out the case on a Friday, conveniently left out the key information in the press release, released it on a Friday night, and just moved on as if nothing happened. They want this to go away because it reflected poorly on the Clintons, who were knee-deep in the approval of the Uranium One deal. Not the only ones, but there's no question she sat on that CFIUS board. And they did not notify the government about the conflicts of interest they had with the financial players in it. Secondly, Mueller's deeply connected to people involved with the Obama administration. How do you explain the fact? I had a long discussion yesterday with an individual, shall remain nameless, but I was explaining how the connections in this case warrant specific questions, Joe. How do you explain the fact that Bob Mueller, one of his chief witnesses, informants in the case, we know this through public reporting. It's not some kind of bizarre conspiracy theory. You can look it up yourself. A guy by the name of George Nader, who is cooperating in the investigation against Trump, the witch hunt. His lawyer is Catherine Rumler, who was Obama's White House general counsel. That was Obama's lawyer, Obama's fixer. Just Google Catherine Rumler, Obama's fixer. You'll see her interconnectedness to Benghazi, the IRS scandal, the Secret Service scandal, Fast and Furious. She was the White House lawyer giving Obama advice on how to skate past these scandals. She's representing a chief cooperator working with Mueller. Of all the lawyers in the world, that's the lawyer you pick? Nobody sees this as even slightly bizarre or worthy of questions? John Carlin. You know what? Let me get to Carlin last. Andy Weissman. We now know Andy Weissman, according to Catherine Herridge, which I discussed yesterday, the chief prosecutor in the Mueller probe. Think about this. Knew in August of 2016, before the FISA warrant was sworn to, that Mueller's got a history of being hauled in front of for abuses of the FISA court. We know Andy Weissman, his chief prosecutor bulldog in the case, the guy who's investigating Trump, Andy Weissman with a history of questionable activity.
Right.
A sleaze Andy Weissman. He's been involved in just disturbing, disgusting incidents in the past. Andy Weissman knew before they swore to the FISA warrant, Joe, Andrew Weissman knew that there were political problems with the information they were bringing in front of the FISA court. Yeah. He was briefed by Bruce Orr that the information they had from Christopher Steele used in the FISA was politically biased and of not remotely shocking to us. Weissman nobody includes any of this in the FISA warrant.
How about that?
How about that? Nobody includes in the FISA warrant a material omission. Can we all agree that the information in the FISA warrant used, the dossier, is political? I mean political. They do include the fact that it was political in nature. I want to be clear. But right. They don't include the fact that it comes from the Hillary Clinton team and is being financed by a guy, Christopher Steele, who's on the record telling Orr that he can't stand Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, if that doesn't qualify for a material omission in a FISA court, I have no idea what does. Mueller's connected to Weissman. Weissman's working the Enron case, the disastrous case where convictions were thrown out when Mueller's the FBI director. They know each other. They have to know each other. Mueller picks him specifically, Weissman, the guy who hates Donald Trump. Weissman, the guy who emails Sally Yates, known Trump hater, when she's at DOJ, emails her celebrating the fact that she's refusing to carry out Trump's orders on the travel ban. Why would Mueller pick him? Why would the chief cooperator in the case pick Obama's lawyer? Why does Rosenstein, the guy who's involved in the Uranium One case when Mueller's the FBI director, then pick Mueller? And then why pick Mueller to be the special counsel in a FISA abuse case when Mueller himself has been accused of FISA abuses? Finally, there's more players involved, but I have a lot to get through here, including the socialism stuff. John Carlin. John Carlin. Ladies and gentlemen, John Carlin was Bob Mueller's old chief of staff. They clearly have a professional and personal relationship. None of this is in dispute. John Carlin is Mueller's chief of staff, but then moves on. He moves on and takes a different position. He takes a position in the Department of Justice as the head of the National Security Division. Oh, isn't that convenient? How about that?
How about that?
Why does that matter? Why does that matter? Because in the material omissions from the FISA court, we have a FISA abuse scandal where the FISA court was used to spy on the Trump team. With material omissions, the information used to spy was given to them by Hillary Clinton, her team, by another guy, Steele, who's on the record saying he hates Trump. Who verified the information? Well, in the chain of command of people to verify the information, John Carlin is at the top. He's one of the last guys in the Department of Justice to sign off in a procedure called the Woods procedure. That's his buddy, John Carlin. John Carlin put his John Hancock, his signature, on a form, a Woods file that has to document that the information they used contained no material omissions and was authentic before it went to the FISA court. It did have material omissions and was inauthentic. Why is Mueller not investigating his old buddy? Now, the Solomon piece. Why did I bring up the players? Oh, because it gets good, because here's him hiding the game too. And when I say hiding the game, he's hiding the fact that the Woods procedure to verify information is BS. How do we know that? Because the information used to spy on Trump, Joe, wasn't verified. So if the Woods procedure is designed to verify information in the FISA court and unverified information got into FISA court, the Woods procedure and the file are BS. Are they not? It's just common sense.
Yeah.
Mueller has to hide that. He's here to save the reputation of the DOJ. The other part of the game he's hiding is the FISA process in general. It's become a star chamber. Now, quoting from John Solomon's piece in The Hill, most of the omissions occurred in FBI work that predated Mueller's arrival, the sources said. But the court wanted assurances that the new sheriff in town, Bob Mueller at the time when he was appointed FBI director, was going to stop the abuses. Mueller told the court, wait for it, Mueller told the court that the FBI, under his tenure, folks, had created a new system called the Woods procedures to ensure FISA warrant How long have we been telling you? Pay attention to the Woods procedure.
Yeah.
This matters because it creates a paper trail about how they verified unverified information to ensure warrant applications were accurate and did not omit material information, according to Anderson's congressional interview. Listen to this. This is Tricia Anderson, FBI lawyer in front of Congress. My understanding is he committed to the court to address the problem, and then he's talking about Mueller, and that the series of reforms we implemented, including the use of the Woods form, were the direct result of his engagement before the FISA court. In other words, the Woods procedure are attributed to Mueller's tenure at the FBI.
Oh.
Bob Mueller's team is responsible for devising a set of procedures to verify information that grotesquely failed in the political spying operation through the very same court on Donald Trump. Where the heck is that Woods file? Now do you understand why I keep bringing it up? You're probably like banging your head against the desk. You've been saying this forever, Dan. Yes, now you know why. The Woods file is a paper trail of a bunch of people following procedures started when Bob Mueller was the FBI director that failed abysmally to verify an ounce of information that was used to spy on the now President of the United States team. What better guy to be the cover-up artist than Bob Mueller? He was the perfect guy. It's his procedure. Hide the players. Hide the game. Today's show also brought to you by our buddies at iTarget. Ladies and gentlemen, there's two things with a firearm that matter. Most importantly, if you're going to be effective and more proficient, give it a week. Give it 3-4 days from a Monday to a Friday. That's the letter I, targetpro.com. So just to wrap up where we were with the Mueller probe, ladies and gentlemen, this is his sole purpose right now. It's clear as day. You have to protect the players. Mueller knows the players. Mueller also knows the game as well. He is protecting what his baby was. He is protecting this thing he coddled from the time he was the FBI director on, the Woods procedure. He is protecting the FISA court because the DOJ and the FBI need these tools, and Rod Rosenstein knows it. Okay, moving on. So there was an interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal this morning about socialism. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a topic that sadly has taken on new importance in the United States. There it is. Who's afraid of socialism? Because we have this new far left radical group of Democrats who are now of the Alexandria Cortez, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris model, who have been moving the Democrat Party from what was the Bill Clinton Democrat Leadership Committee Democrats over to the far left, back into the socialist camp, where they've gone on and off for the last few decades. But I think when we talk about socialism, we tend to talk about it in a almost esoteric, kind of ethereal, like otherworldly way. We don't hammer it down what they really mean. And the Journal does a good job this morning of talking about exactly what this new Democrat socialist agenda means for you and how it's going to hurt. So I'm going to pin this down for you, and I'm going to put together some bullet points about how dangerous this lurch is for you. But first, I want to describe what this new form of socialism is for them and how we got here. Socialism is the government control of the means of production. Now, Kevin Williamson, who I'm not sure where he's writing for, and I think he's back at National Review. There was a big scandal with him at the Atlantic. It doesn't involve him. It involved the people at the Atlantic losing their minds. That's a whole other story. But he had a book I read a while ago. Forgive me, I forget the title. I always screw it up, like The Idiot's Guide to Socialism or something like that. But it's a good book. And I read it. And in the book, we've mentioned it often. It's up there with The Black Swan, even though Williamson's not a huge fan of my, I can't, listen, it's good work, whatever. But in the book, he writes about how after the collapse of the Soviet Union, this is an important point, folks. This is critical, right? After the collapse of the Soviet Union, it was very difficult for any Democrat, even though they believed that socialism worked and it was just it was only the people in the Soviet Union that blew it, Joe. Socialism's not a bad idea. It's just the idiots that implemented it. Williamson makes the point that the collapse of the Soviet Union in such a devastating, open, newsworthy fashion made it very difficult for any mainstream Democrat to get out in front of the TV screen and say what Democrats are saying now. People like Cortez and Sanders said, socialism's great. Really? Because these people in the Soviet Union are starving. Right. It made it difficult to do that. And your political capital would go down dramatically. So Williamson makes an interesting point in his book. It's an older book. That the Democrats shifted to a new form of socialism. And the new form of socialism is this. Let's not argue for a government takeover of the economy, which is what socialism is. Socialism, by definition, is the government control of the means of production. The means of production are the economic levers that produce refrigerators, medicine, everything. The government controls those means of production in socialism. Controls who works there, controls who becomes a doctor, who pays the doctor, what you're paid. That is what it is. It is hard tyranny. It is economic and political tyranny. The Democrats could no longer do that after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So they argued for this new form of socialism, which was a brilliant point I thought Williamson made, that, Joe, why control the means of production outright if you could de facto do it? Don't de jure do it, de facto do it. In other words, if the government, the United States government, were to tomorrow declare that we are now a socialist economy, all of your business is our business. Bongino Inc. is now, which is a real company we own, is now owned by the U.S. government. You will work for us and we will dictate what you're paid. Then what happens, Joe? Bongino Inc. would go under because I'm not working for the government.
Right.
And then who's to blame? The government.
Sure.
And that's what happened in the Soviet Union when the government took over nail production factories, car production factories, and the Russian Lada, the car fell apart. People eventually blamed the government for their economic deprivation because the government was in charge. That's what socialism is. The new socialism is the government control of the means of production by controlling the taxes and controlling the regulatory framework. It's a genius way to do it, Joe.
Bingo.
Think about it, right? The government doesn't have to outright confiscate your business if they tax the hell out of it and regulate it to death. I don't need to own, as a government official, Joe Armacost Inc. if Joe has to give me all his money through taxes and Joe has to follow an extensive rule book that I laid out. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to do that. All he has to do is work for me by default because he's already giving me his money and he's already subscribing to a series of rules.
Right.
That I laid out. You get what I'm saying? Therefore, what's the benefit of that? If Joe's business fails, then the new socialists who haven't outright confiscated the business, who do they blame? They blame Joe. Look, Joe's business failed. It wasn't our fault. We don't own it. Joe owns it. Joe doesn't own it. Joe owns it in name only.
Right.
He's an OINO, an owner in name only. That is the new socialism. Oh, like a rhino, but an OINO. An owner in name only. Now, think about it, right? Where was new socialism implemented almost perfectly until a monkey wrench got thrown in? You may remember this, Joe. We did a Sunday show. We were only doing once a week shows on this very topic.
Yeah.
Obamacare. Why take over the healthcare system outright if you can tax and regulate it to death? That's what Obamacare was. New regulations. You must subscribe to the community rating. You must subscribe to the guaranteed issue provisions. You will issue these types of policies that do these things. If you don't buy this, you will pay an individual mandate tax. There was the medical device tax. This was a form of the new socialism. Let's not take over the system outright, but let's in turn let the insurance companies exist. And by letting them exist, we'll tax and regulate them to death. And what happened, Joe? The plan was to let the insurance companies fail, to be able to blame them, to then move in to introduce an even bigger government footprint in the system. But what happened? What was the monkey wrench? The monkey wrench was the system was so bad and Obamacare failed so badly. The website didn't work. Premiums went sky high quicker than they expected, that the public backlash made it unavoidable for the media to avoid the story. And in their attempt, remember, what were the Democrats going to do? They were going to blame Armacost Inc. Armacost Health Insurance. Look, it wasn't us. We don't own the health insurance companies. Joe does. All we did was institute these taxes and regulations. It's not our fault he can't comply. But the backlash was so severe that the media was forced to cover it as a failure of Obamacare, and it blew up in their faces. The first experiment in new socialism blew up. So now what are they back to, Joe? Now they're moving back to just outright old socialism in and of itself. Let's go through the bullet points one by one in the Wall Street Journal today, right?
More aggression.
On the healthcare front, instead of the just standard regulation of the healthcare insurance industry through Obamacare, they are now advocating for Medicare for all. Medicare for all, make no mistake, is a bureaucratic government-run healthcare system that would abandon and make illegal private healthcare. Now, it's not full-blown traditional Soviet socialism with regard to the fact that there will still be doctors and hospitals that are allowed to exist as private entities in some respect.
Need them.
In other words, if they want, but having said that, they will be paid by the government, have rules for payment dictated by the government, and the government will effectively, through, again, de facto socialism, dictate the majority of how their business practices are implemented. So it's a move towards the left, even farther away from the Obamacare initial new socialism agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, you understand Medicare for All is really a system to eliminate and make illegal private health care in this country, which will directly impact you. I hope you understand that. Secondly, how, again, we're talking about this. This is the folks. I can't emphasize this enough. This is the actual Democrat agenda. This is not nonsensical stuff or right-wing talking points I'm making up. These are things people have been on the record about.
Right.
Bernie Sanders introduced a Medicare for All bill in the United States Senate that had 16 co-sponsors on the Democrat side. A Medicare for All bill that would wipe out your insurance plan. That really happened. You can look it up yourself. Oh, you're fear-mongering. I'm just telling you what happened. The Democrat New Socialist agenda is moving back towards the old socialist agenda, which is more and more government control of components of your life. Healthcare is number one. Number two, our energy production business. Ocasio-Cortez, conveniently this morning, this woman cannot be ignored. Representative Cortez has accumulated quite a following amongst the economically illiterate. She introduced this morning an absurd, outrageous, nonsensical, mathematically and arithmetically impossible Green New Deal. The Green New Deal dictates a carbon neutral economy within the next 10 years. Now, Joe, how is she going to do that?
Do tell.
Do tell, through government implementation of mandates that will dictate that we move away from energy sources we have now to non-carbon sources. In other words, in regular, rational, reasonable American speak, that would mean dumping gasoline, petrochemicals, coal, natural gas, and others for solar power and wind. Yes, which is in 10 years. Now, you may say, oh, well, that sounds like a great idea, Dan, does it? Because as the Journal indicates this morning, non-carbon energy currently produces a whopping 11% of our energy supply. So how you propose we are going to increase that from 11% to 100% in 10 years without the infrastructure, technology, or even energy thermodynamics to do so is beyond me. But because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got elected to Congress, she thinks she has the cerebral brain power somehow to dictate to our entire energy industry how they're going to come up with the other 89% in 10 years. What are they going to do? Mandate a wind turbine on everybody's roof?
What is she doing? What is she doing?
What is she doing back there?
What is she doing?
Again, the new socialism. You don't have to own the energy industry. You just have to dictate them through taxes and regulation, how they're going to operate. And then when they fail, you just blame it on them. Third, so first, they want to take over the healthcare industry. Again, already proposed and voted on. Second, they want to take over the energy industry. Oh, you're fear-mongering. Really? Did you read the bill this morning? The agenda? It's not the bill. The agenda, the Green New Deal she's putting forward? This is an elected member of Congress with very real power. Did you miss that? She's fear-mongering, not us. We're just telling you the truth. Yeah. Third, they want to dramatically gain control and a government foothold, camel's nose under the tent, into the American workforce to an even more significant degree than they are now. They want to do a federal jobs guarantee. A jobs guarantee. Meaning everybody is guaranteed some job backed by federal government dollars at a, quote, living wage. Ladies and gentlemen, think about that. If the federal government now hires everyone who doesn't have a job, why would you go and look for another job in the free market economy where value is being added? Ladies and gentlemen, the government doesn't add value. I've had some people email me and object to this. They say the government adds value. Folks, the constitutional republic, as implemented by our Constitution, our founding documents, understood that there is nothing the government do that the free market can't do better. Nothing. Nothing. Now, the reason we accept financial asymmetries and government spending in terms of our military and our court system in the Constitution is because the incentives for a private court system or a private military, even though they're less economically efficient, are damaging. You don't want a bunch of mercenaries running around starting wars to get a pay raise. Some would argue some lobbyists are doing that now.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a military, thankfully, filled with American patriots who if you're a listener to the show, you know I have the deepest and most profound respect for, and I sincerely mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for what you do for relatively little money. It's amazing. But understand that we accept the financial asymmetries there because we have to with regard to the military and the court system. There is nothing the government does that adds value more than can be done in a free market economy. Milton Friedman's old line, when the government spends other people's money on other people, which is what the government does, it takes money from you and gives it to someone else, neither cost nor quality matter because it's not their money and they're not even buying what they're buying for themselves. I had a woman email me, and I appreciate your feedback, saying, hey, I work for the government. We provide this analysis for roads. Thank you. I appreciate your I'm not knocking you. I worked for the government in the Secret Service. There are good people there. I left. There are good folks there. And I'm not suggesting what they do isn't valuable in the law enforcement function. I'm suggesting to you that the value added, well, law enforcement's separate. I should include them with the military because obviously the incentives would be perverse there too. But when you start talking about traffic control mechanisms, the free market economy is obviously motivated by spending their own money on themselves to increase the cost and quality of those mechanisms. I bring all this up in light of the federal jobs guarantee because the more people we pull out of a private economy that has an incentive by spending their own money on themselves where cost and quality matter and put them in the federal workforce where cost and quality don't matter, because you're spending other people's money on other people, the more efficiency we lose out of the economy. This is a real proposal, the jobs guarantee, included in a lot of these Green New Deal type agenda items.
Duh.
This is really happening. We're not making this up. All right, I got a few more. The new socialism. This is real. It's not a joke. Before we get to that, final read today from a great company. They sent me a couple samples of their shirts, and my wife loves them, really loves them. You ever have that problem, Joe, when you untuck a dress shirt? They have the cuts on the side, and it just never looks right.
Right.
Well, Untuckit's figured that out. No guy looks good in a long, bulky dress shirt when it's untucked. You look like you got a poncho on. Come on, we all know it looks terrible. You might think it looks casual, but really it does look sloppy. I can't stand that look. That's because they were never meant to be worn that way. Old school dress shirts were meant to be tucked in. But Untuckit makes shirts specifically designed to be worn untucked. And man, do these shirts look spectacular. I got 2 of them. They look great. I should take a photo, put it on my Instagram. For that clean, casual look that's not too long or not too short, you can even wear at the office. You need Untuckit. They have more than 50 fit combinations, athletic type fits, slim fits. It works out great. Untuckit shirts look great on tall, short, slim, and athletic guys of all ages. Go to untuckit.com or visit one of Untuckit's 50 stores across the U.S. and Canada. Untuckit even offers free encroaching on your life and increasingly taking away your freedom in a zero-sum battle for liberty. Liberty is zero-sum. Your money, your choices, and your healthcare choices cannot belong to you and the government at the same time, folks. Either you are making your healthcare decisions and spending your money on yourself, your business, and your family, or the government is. Those two spaces can't coexist at the same time. It is a continuum. More government, less individual freedom. Less government, more individual freedom. This is not a hard concept to figure out.
Not at all.
Another area where socialism is encroaching on your life in a very real, tangible way. Elizabeth Warren, candidate for president, who was busted again yesterday for declaring herself an American Indian on her Texas bar application. She is not American Indian in any kind of tribal significant way. She did it clearly at this point to get ahead. Elizabeth Warren is proposing a federal charter for companies earning $1 billion or more. A federal charter. So now we want government bureaucrats who can't even get government right, government bureaucrats who have no expertise at all in even governing, who have zero expertise in running billion-dollar businesses to be managing through a federal charter billion-dollar businesses to ensure they operate according to federal principles? If this isn't the new socialism, Joe, I don't know what is.
They're with the government. They're qualified.
For what? They're not, you and I both know they're not qualified for anything. No. So you want government bureau, again, the new social, why own the business outright? If you can move in on Apple and Microsoft and other businesses, if you can just move in and dictate to their board through a federal charter how they're going to operate, what better way to roll? Make sure that they invest, Joe, in social justice programs and elsewhere. I can see it coming now. Millions and millions of dollars for activist groups that promote left-leaning causes. Because why? The federal charter says it's so.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are real consequences in the real world. These are real proposals. This is not a joke. On the economic front, the federal government encroaching in your life. I just showed you the very simple to understand continuum. Individual liberty, government power. We give up some individual liberty through financing our taxes through a constitutional role of the republic. We give up some of our individual liberty based on things we can and can't do. We obviously can't commit certain crimes. We can't because we vote on people who vote on laws. But understand, as the government takes more of your money and implements new rules, there's no power in yes, as Chuck Ecker once told me. Chuck Ecker, Howard County executive in Maryland, once said to me, government power constantly increases and the bureaucracy grows because there is absolutely no power in yes. There is only power in the government in telling people no. When you tell people no, they have to come back to you to lobby you to get to yes.
Yep.
There is no power in an initial yes. So what do? In order to get people to get to yes, we tax the snot out of them and we implement a bunch of tax loopholes that have to be lobbied for. So you need a favor, you're paying a 70% tax rate. You walk into your local government official, hey, I'm getting crushed in my business with this tax rate. Hey, we're going to make a loophole for your blue t-shirt business or whatever it may be. That's why the implementation of high tax rates works for the government. It enables government bureaucrats to get the lobbyists in their office to make and empower them to get them to yes. Then they use the lobbyists later for jobs when they get out of office. This is an invirtuous circle of stupid that never seems to end. The tax rates on the personal front, it is more money out of your wallet. Ladies and gentlemen, these are real plans. I wrote down 3 of them. Bernie Sanders is now proposing upping the tax rate, the death tax, to 77%. So keep in mind, you've saved your entire life to hand off some assets to your children that you've paid taxes on, capital gains taxes, income taxes, payroll taxes. You've accumulated post-tax money you want to leave off to your kids in the form of capital, assets, and money. And now Bernie Sanders wants 77% of that. Again, new socialism. I don't have to own you, but if I own your ability to economically get ahead and pass on some form of wealth to your children, I own you anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Representative Cortez proposing a 70% top marginal tax rate for people making $10 million or more. You may say, well, that's not going to affect me. No, it is going to affect you because as I've stated to you multiple times, her plan is economically unfeasible. She's promoting $40+ trillion in new spending, $4 trillion a year in new spending with only $200 billion via this tax at most to pay for it. Of course, this is going to affect you. Either she's ignorant or she's lying. There's no money in a 10 millionaire tax to pay for $40 trillion in new spending. Not even close. The real money in America is with the middle class. She knows that. Elizabeth Warren proposing a 2% wealth tax on assets. Assets, money you've already paid taxes on. The 2% annual tax on your assets if you make a certain amount of money. Again, ladies and gentlemen, real socialism in real time trying to be implemented in the very real United States of America. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, Schumer and Bernie Sanders are promoting another plan now to limit stock buybacks. Folks, this is absurd. You know, I understand. I got a nice email from a guy who does some good work in finance. It was a good email talking about the float and how stock buybacks benefit executives within a company who are paid in stock. I get it. I understand that. No one's suggesting any form of compensation comes without risk to shareholders. Nobody. Obviously, if you're going to pay people in pure income, you don't know how they're going to be motivated. It may be some form of a lifetime employment, and they're not really worried about the stock price. They take a cushy job, whatever it may be. There's always, you pay them in form of capital gains, of stocks. Of course, they're going to have an incentive to up the strike price they got it at. And there's always a down and an upside to any form of compensation. But Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumer are promoting, they wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, they to limit stock buybacks. So now you want companies to do what? When they can't figure out anything to do with their money, to buy a bunch of low-return assets and keep a bunch of cash hoards lying around? Hoards, folks. Don't email me that with the RDS at the end. Cash hoards laying around, that's what you want? How do you think people who are invested in these stocks, pension funds, are going to feel by Chuck Schumer dictating to a company how they can manage their own assets? This is insane. This is very real and happening right now in the United States. This is real socialism. So to sum up, here's the penalty for you. They want to control your health care through Medicare for all, the energy industry through this Green New Deal, the jobs workforce through a jobs guarantee, how businesses are run, successful businesses through a federal charter. They want to control your income through increased tax rates and even a death tax, a higher death tax. And now they want to control how major companies manage their own investment decisions. The new socialism. If all of this is implemented, they don't have to own those companies outright and confiscate the means of production. Because they already would. They would be taxing and regulating them to death. And that way, when the companies fail, they won't blame socialism. They'll blame those companies. All right, last story of the day, but it's an important one. I have a good piece up from AmericanGreatness.com I would really love for you to check out. It's very good. Talks about something we've discussed on the show before, how no one has succeeded in getting the Democrats to show their butts better than Donald Trump. Folks, the way the Democrats have moved and secreted themselves into political office and political power and increased their political capital and their political bank accounts over the years is by lying to people. Their strategic use of identity politics, phony, spurious charges of racism, sexism, homophobia. Their reason for doing that, Joe, is because what's the Democrats' primary election strategy? It's never to get you to vote for them. They keep that mask on. It's to get you to vote against the other guy.
Right.
In other words, the Democrats have hidden their agenda for a long time. The agenda I just laid out to you. They feel like with the implementation of the Trump agenda and the Trump presidency, they have a unique opportunity to leverage anti-Trump emotion to move people into ideas rather than the hatred they've used before to get people to vote against the other guy. That may not make sense. In the past, they've hidden their agenda completely. They see a unique opportunity right now to unmask their agenda because they think people are so angry at Trump that they won't pay attention to the details. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, it did, right, Joe?
Yeah,
they just feel like people are so angry at Trump, no matter what they say, people will vote for it.
Yeah.
But in the past, they've hidden this. Even Obama didn't advocate for Medicare for all. Trump has succeeded in getting the Democrats to show their butts and getting them to lay out exactly what I just told you. Now people are starting to see, and I think moderate working class Americans are starting to get a little frightened. Like, wait, you mean Medicare for all means my healthcare plan is going to go away? Wait, you mean my taxes are going to go up? Wait, you mean my business is going to be the one that's regulated by the government? So there's this piece in American Greatness that says, again, a point we've hammered home repeatedly, that Donald Trump has enraged the left to such a point that he's gotten the left to expose themselves and rip their own masks off. The don't vote for them thing is not working anymore. And the American Greatness piece talks about it in reference to even the State of the Union, how even little things that were previously considered bipartisan, entering the country legally, respecting our immigration laws, even little things have now gone out the window. The Democrats refused to get up and clap. A lot of them, even when he mentioned the evils of socialism. The Democrats, some of them sat on their butts and just sat there and did evils of socialism. We are socialists. The gift of Donald Trump has been his ability to expose the left precisely for who they are. They have shown their butts to the American people. They've shown their healthcare butts. They've shown their economic butts. They've shown their economic, their green agenda butts, their energy butts, their business butts, and none of these butts look good.
Woo.
It's ugly, folks. Read the piece. It's very good. The Democrats now are their identity politics. They're still married to that. But it's not just that. They feel like they have a unique opportunity now, given the anger at Trump, to show the American people who they really are. All right, folks, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes. It is free if you have an iPhone. If you have an Android phone or other device, you can follow the show. If you go to iHeartRadio, there's a follow button. That is free as well. You can follow on SoundCloud. It is the subscriptions that drive us up the charts and help other people find our content.
Deliberate here. Greetings. Great to have you, Rush Limbaugh and the EIB Network at 800-282-2882. If we just shut up and let these people speak, we may end this whole climate change issue inside of 2 years. Just shut up. It's going to be very tough for me to do. But the thing that got my reaction here, Pelosi has created this brand new committee, a select committee, to deal with climate change, and she did not put Ocasio-Cortez on it. Ocasio-Cortez has been snubbed. Ocasio-Cortez is leading this thing among the millennials and the Democrat freshmen. And Pelosi has named this new select committee, just announced, and not going to put Cortez on it. This is going to cause delectable fireworks. But let me just run through some of the things. And you all have a proper background understanding of climate change. You've been here 30 plus years. You've heard me detail everything there is about it. Some of the new proposals that they have somehow let loose, they want to rebuild every single building in America. They want to phase out air travel in 10 years. They are promising government jobs and health care for everybody, and they're suggesting that if we don't have the money for it, no big deal, just print some. There's a story in Politico today quoting Cortez is saying deficits don't mean anything. Exactly. My friends, I love this in a way because I've been theorizing lately about how telling people that we can't afford it, not a reason to do something, doesn't work anymore with these people because it doesn't matter that we don't have the money to do anything. We've got deficits, 21 trillion national debt. It's not stopping anybody from spending more, proposing to spend any more. And now they're coming out and just being honest. It doesn't matter whether we have the money or not. And if we don't, just print it. Now, out there in the millennial population, we literally have a bunch of young people who believe that the earth is not going to be habitable when they hit 65. I've tried to tell you they really believe this. You would not believe, I did a special survey after the State of the Union. Trump didn't even talk about climate change. You would not believe the number of millennial news sites and blogs that were outraged. Livid. It was the number one criticism these people had, that Trump didn't mention climate change. And you could read in the stories they wrote about it that they're genuinely scared to death. It is a crime what has been done to these kids. It is literally a crime the way they have been propagandized from the moment that they started watching television, from early childhood. They literally believe this planet is under destruction as we sit here today, and that human beings in the United States of America are responsible for it, primarily Republicans, and they're calling for drastic action. And so Cortez and her band have proposed it. Rebuild every building in America. I'm not making this up. They are dead serious. Phase out air travel in the next 10 years. Lord, thank you for my enemies. These people have now proposed what they literally believe, what they think is necessary. And I find myself reacting to this much as I did reacting to things 20 years ago. So nobody is going to believe this. Nobody's going to support this. Everybody's going to see how wacko this is. Now, I've learned some people are going to support it. Some people are going to support banning air travel. Some people are going to think it's a great idea to tear down every building and rebuild every building so that it'll be economically, environmentally proper. I mean, literal impossibilities. We cannot ban air travel. The world would be brought to a screeching halt. The rest of the world isn't going to do any of this. And then you get to the printing money aspect. So the great thing here is that they are, for whatever reason, showing all of their cards, and they are demonstrating exactly what they think is necessary to save the planet. And we're all going to benefit from this expose. So I'll have more details on this, as well as Pelosi. What would you call this? I mean, this is a major slap upside the head. A brand new select committee on climate change, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will not be seated on this committee. Pelosi's appointed 3 other freshman Democrats to the panel, 8 Democrats to the new special climate change committee. Cortez is not the climate change committee. I have to tell you, I think Pelosi knows this is all a crock, but she has to. I mean, folks, this is insane. This is literally childish. This is romper room type stuff, and she's got to know this. So she has to placate these people and give them their little committee, and putting mostly freshmen on it means that she's not taking it all that seriously. So wanted to set the table with that, but I want to now pivot from, no, that's right, I didn't. I had a story yesterday that said the secret Republican plot to take down Trump. I didn't get to it. I have it sitting right here. It's ready to go. We will get it in before today's program expires. And yes, I've seen the picture of Joy Behar dressed as a quote-unquote beautiful black woman when she was 29 years old, going to a Halloween party. Made a big deal of it in 2016 on The View. It's amazing. The political party that is conducting a war on women is the one party fighting sex trafficking. They say we have been conducting a war on women, the Republicans. We're the ones trying to stop the mistreatment of women, sex trafficking. We're trying to stop human trafficking, clean things up at the border. The Democrats, this thing in Virginia is mind-boggling, and the drive-bys don't know what to do, because if all 3 of these Democrats go, the next in line is a Republican, and they're all trying to give each other pep talks. Don't worry, CNN's telling each other. It's not going to get to that. It's not going to get to that. Northam's going to hold on. Northam's going to survive. Northam's going to survive. What about Kavanaugh? What about all of these other people that you can't wait to destroy? The hypocrisy is rampant. It's on parade. Democrats, look what they're constantly in the news for now. They're constantly in the news for sexual abuse of women. They have no interest in fighting sex trafficking at the southern border. You know, I know a war on women when I see one. And the Democrat Party is conducting a war on women, just like they're conducting a war on babies. They are conducting a war on jobs. They are conducting a war on affordable energy. They are conducting a war on economics. They are conducting a war on journalism. They are conducting a war on high-quality, affordable health insurance. This party is becoming, on a daily basis, observably so, exactly that which they claim the Republican Party is. And, of course, as a result, the Democrat Party is becoming and is conducting a never-ending war on the truth. So the Virginia scandal I have to tell you, it is fun. It is fun watching how the drive-bys are covering and not covering the scandals involving the three top Democrats in the Virginia state politics. It's a lot like watching Pravda trying to report or not report on some major scandal in the Kremlin. It's just they're beside themselves. In fact, Chris Cuomo, Fredo, on his show on CNN last night, starts warning people, hey, don't expect much out of the Mueller. No, don't expect much on the Mueller report. They're losing control. Soundbite 22, you got to hear this. Last night, Anderson Cooper 360 speaking with Fredo Cuomo, the host of his own show. You know, it's pretty bad when you have a show on a cable network and your guests are the hosts of other shows. And it happens on Fox News a lot, too. Anyway, Fredo Cuomo had this to say as a little bit of a caution.
You need to temper your expectations of what's going to happen with the Mueller probe that I don't see, and I could be wrong, but any proof of criminality that is going to pose a threat to the presidency. However, there are other probes going on that should be of great concern because Mueller has a specific mandate. The Southern District and Eastern District of New York, also federal prosecutors, obviously, do not. And they are looking at things that he can't deny knowledge about, his business, his foundation.
It's inane. Mueller has a specific mandate. He does not have a specific mandate. That's the whole problem. Mueller was not given, as regulations require, a specific crime to pursue. But Fredo doesn't know that. None of these people at CNN know that. They believe that Robert Mueller was officially charged with finding evidence that Trump colluded with Russia. He was not given a crime. That's what makes this whole thing unconstitutional and illegal. Mueller was not given a crime. By design, he was given a license to go fishing. But the larger point, CNN, for over 2 years, has been devoted to the premise that Trump stole the election. They have been devoted to the idea that the Russians came in and colluded and tampered with our election to benefit Trump so that he could win and defeat Hillary. CNN has established that as its identity. This is why they are in business. This is what and why the news is reported on CNN. And now here comes Fredo telling us we need to temper our expectations of what's going to happen with the Mueller probe. He doesn't see any proof of criminality that's going to pose a threat to the presidency. What? You've just wiped out the last 2 years of CNN's existence. You have just told your own audience that the network they've been watching the last 2 years has been lying to them. And this is the same kind of pretzel that these people are tied into in Virginia. They're trying to cover up, but they can't cover up. The governor, the lieutenant governor, the other one ensnared in this. What's funny is that Justin Fairfax, lieutenant governor, he's in it deep. He's in it. He's got a woman out there claiming, and she's an educated, bright woman. She's not, one of Bill Clinton's trailer park dollar bill hooks. This woman's educated from the same part of the country that Ballsy Ford is from, and she's out there saying this guy did the deed. He was nasty. It was dirty. It was filthy. It was abuse. So Fairfax, as soon as the allegations against him were reported in the Washington Post, Fairfax hired the same law firm that represented Kavanaugh against Ballsy Ford, which is very rich. Since the other day, Fairfax's accuser, Vanessa Tyson, has hired Ballsy Ford's lawyers. So we've got a replay here. We got Ballsy Ford's lawyers going against Kavanaugh's lawyers all over again, only this time it's 180 degrees out of phase. I wonder if Miss Tyson will have to pay them, or are they working for free like they did for Dr. Ballsy Ford? That development, folks, is a perfect example of what I mean by the drive-bys ignoring as much of these scandal details as they can, because both of those scoops about the lawyer hirings were uncovered by local Virginia NPR. I'm not sure they have been mentioned anywhere else in the drive-by media. Maybe by now they have, but it wasn't long ago that the lawyer teams and who these two people had hired to represent them and go destroy the other, the drive-bys have not mentioned Ballsy Ford's lawyers have been hired or that Kavanaugh's lawyers have been hired. That was local Virginia media that did that. The drive-bys don't want us to compare the Fairfax situation, Justin Fairfax with Kavanaugh. It's rich. We'll go to the audio sound bites and illustrate all this. Let me take a brief time out. We will come back, continue EIB Network and El Rushbo off and running on Thursday. Here's one of the proposals from the Green New Deal people. A provision in the Green New Deal, quote, expanding high-speed rail to a scale where air travel stops becoming necessary. What has our education system done? What in the world has it done to people? It has turned them against progress. It has turned them against prosperity. It has turned them against greatness. It has turned them against the pursuit of excellence. It has turned them into cowards. I mean, it just high-speed rail developed to a scale where air travel becomes unnecessary. This is so absent reality that I'm kind of a little stumped here in reacting to this. But I don't know that I want to be on the rail line from New York to London. High-speed rail sufficiently widespread enough to make air travel unnecessary? And they think trains are not going to pollute? Trains are not going to... Anyway, to the audio sound bites. Back to Virginia we go here. This is Good Morning America, fretting over what happens if all three Democrats in Virginia have to quit. That means we'll get a Republican. Oh, no.
Now, if all three men resign, the three men that are mired in scandals right now, then the Republican, who is the House Speaker, would be the next in line to take over the state. George?
And Tom, that's why they're so reluctant to resign right now, but the pressure is building. In the meantime, the state government is basically paralyzed.
It is paralyzed. George, you got to remember, all these Democrats called on Governor Northam to resign. Now two other Democrats, the next two men in line, they're also Democrats. It's mass confusion.
It's not mass confusion at all. What's mass confusion is how you guys in the media and all you gentlemanly governor, lieutenant governor in Virginia are simply trying to hold on here. Why, if it were anybody else, you'd be joining the parade to oust them. But here come Governor Northam, and he's trying to outlast the news cycle. He's trying to make sure that nobody done be remembering what he did. Why, they even have a poll out. Have you seen this poll? This poll says that only 58% of Americans oppose blackface. So if you're Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia, why, you can say that many people aren't even bothered by it. Only 58% oppose it. That means that 42% people may not mind it. That's enough for me to hang on. Drive-bys are desperate. Can't believe this. Don't want to have anything to do with these guys resigning, hoping and praying that they can survive the news cycle. Because the last thing that we want is a Republican to take. There hadn't been a Republican governor in Virginia for 10 years. Man, oh man. This is why you can't make political predictions, because a month ago, who could have possibly predicted any of this? Of all places. Now, it might be it might actually be a Washington Post headline, because they did have a graphic in the Washington Post up there. It's about Elizabeth Warren. Folks, this is a smorgasbord of Democrat leftist implosion that has been happening now for all of this week, and it's going to continue. Then you throw in the middle of this brilliant Trump State of the Union speech. You know what? One of the greatest things, I'm sorry to keep hopscotching here, but I say something and the synapses in my phenomenal brain fire, and I think of something else. I continue to think about how it characterized the Trump State of the Union speech. One of the great things that it did, and there were many, fantastic, great things in it. But the president literally took the time to properly define Make America Great Again and explain to a nationwide audience exactly what it is. And it's nothing more than everybody devoted to, if they wish to be, greatness and excellence. The left has succeeded, and the media has succeeded in characterizing Make America Great Again as a bunch of white hayseed hicks worried that they're losing their country and wanting to take it over again. Hey, Siri, stop. And so I've my HomePod fired up there for some reason. So he redefined it properly for the nation in a non-threatening way, in ways the media has been attempting to mischaracterize it. In the midst of all of that, the Democrats are imploding, and half of them don't even know that that's what's happening. Elizabeth Warren, the headline, Elizabeth Warren struggles with questions of identity. Struggles with questions of identity. You mean like she doesn't know what she is? That's not what Elizabeth Warren is struggling with. Elizabeth Warren is struggling with the fact she got caught lying about being Indian, 1024th Indian, in order to get hired and in order to be admitted into various state bar associations so she could practice law there. She got caught lying. This woman, Pocahontas, I'm telling you, does not have both feet in reality. And I think she is emblematic of a lot of people on the left who have to construct false identities based on minority status, based on privilege themselves. But she is running around literally trying to cover up lies that she has been telling for years. And the latest attempt at covering, well, this were the stories that my brothers and me and my sisters and my cousins and my Indian relatives were told. I don't know. I was told this growing up that I had high cheekbones. I wasn't told anything of the sort. All of this is manufactured. She was trying to curry favor as a leftist with a bunch of other minorities in a phony attempt to make them think that she was one of them. And she's been caught. She's not struggling with questions of identity. She's struggling with questions of authenticity and honesty, and maybe even reality. Back to the audio sound bites. This is Jeffrey Toobin at CNN trying to calm everybody down over the potential disaster in Virginia.
I think the process is probably going to slow down a little. I mean, I think none of these three public officials are going to leave immediately. And, you know, I think maybe counting on the fact that our attention, we are the ultimate short attention span children, you know, those of us in the news media, and they may be counting on the fact that the circus will move on and they can hang in there.
Stop and think of what we're just hearing here. This guy is the circus. And he's saying that Ralph Northam and his buddies in the Democrat Party in Virginia are counting on the circus, packing up and leaving town, losing interest. He is the circus. He's speaking about his own industry that he's a part of as though he stands outside it. You talk about struggling with questions of identity. Can you imagine Walter Cronkite saying, well, I think the process is probably going to slow down. None of these three public officials are going to leave immediately. I think they may be counting on the fact that I and my colleagues, Eric Severide and I, here at CBS News, we're going to lose interest and we're going to cover this. And, of course, we're just children, you know, here at CBS. We have no attention span whatsoever. And we're going to move on to something else. Soon as some Republican steps in it, we're going to be off on that. And that's what these guys are counting on. And so I think everybody ought to come. He's basically saying that the news media is hanging back, doing everything it can to let something else take this spotlight. Now, contrast this with the attention span they had on getting rid of Brett Kavanaugh. They didn't slack off. They didn't lose interest. I mean, this Ralph Northam thing's basically been, just a week? And here CNN's already talking about, well, they're counting on us losing interest. And Toobin's basically assuring, at some point we at CNN will lose interest. What he doesn't say is we're just waiting for Trump to say something. We're waiting for some Republican to do something, and we can then start moving over and covering that and destroy them and give these other guys a little break from all this attention, because we really don't want Ralph Northam gone, and we don't want Justin Fairfax gone. We don't want any Democrat gone ever. I don't know. They are every faction, every aspect of the American left today. Something has happened, and they are all dropping the camouflage and the mask, and they are all letting everybody see them as they are, be it the millennials and the Green New Deal, or Ralph Northam and the New York State legislature and post-birth abortion, or blackface, being obsessed with dressing up as black people and then making fun of them, Democrats, which is perfectly in character. All of this stuff is coming out. Now here's the news media letting it be known that they're hoping for anything to happen so they don't have to cover it anymore. Jeffrey Toobin praying that something's going to happen to cause the circus, the media, to move on down the road, the drive-bys, rather than push this. Here's James Clyburn from the Congressional Black Caucasians, not to be confused with the Congressional Black Israelites. And he was on Cavuto yesterday, Fox News Channel. Cavuto said, Clyburn is, by the way, Democrat from South Carolina, if it ended up with a Republican taking over the State House in Virginia, how would you feel about that and the rest of your buddies here at the Congressional Black Caucasians?
I would not feel good about that. My goodness. I would not feel good about the governor having to leave the office. But I think it is something that he should consider doing for the party's sake. And I would not feel good if Justin Fairfax were not given due process as it relates to the charges or the allegations, I should call, regarding him. So I'm not going to feel good about any of this.
Due process. What's due process? What happened to every woman has to be believed? What happened to every woman making this charge is automatically right? What happened to the guy is guilty and has to go? What happened to this mass paranoia and attack on Kavanaugh that has now become, well, Justin Fairfax is going to have to be extended in due process? I think the governor ought to go for the good of the party, but I'm not so sure that Justin Fairfax ought to have due process. There is an educated African-American woman from Stanford who says this guy brutalized her. And the Congressional Black Caucasians and the rest of the Democrat Party are talking about due process. Now, don't misunderstand. I'm all for due process. I don't want to be I'm pointing out the hypocrisy of these people. See, when it's one of their people that's in the crosshairs, guess what matters? The law, the rule of law. Gotta have evidence. Gotta have incontrovertible evidence. It's that stuff that gets thrown out when it's a Republican. There is no due process. The woman's always right, whether she is right or... In fact, there doesn't even have to be an episode. The Democrats will get together and create a phony sexual assault episode like what they did with Kavanaugh, and they'll involve Dianne Feinstein and her staff on the committee. And they'll coordinate it with Ballsy Ford and her lawyers and so forth. And they'll create this massive event that didn't happen and then act righteously offended and indignant and suggest Kavanaugh is unfit and he's got to go, even though there hadn't been a shred of evidence ever at any confirmation hearing Kavanaugh ever did anything of the sort. And then here comes an actual believable allegation with a woman who is not going away and doesn't sound like a 10-year-old when she speaks, as did Ballsy Ford. And the Congressional Black Caucasians are talking about due process. Yeah, get rid of Northam. He's a white guy. We get rid of him. That's not a big deal. But we're not losing Fairfax. We're not going to cut him loose as a Congressional Black Caucasian. I'm sorry, folks. I love this. I know we've been here before. We've been here. Democrats have imploded, made fools of themselves like this. And sadly, not as many people as we think noticed. But it doesn't mean we're not going to sit here and try to make them notice. I got to take another brief time out. We'll come back. I got a guy on the phone from Clifton, Virginia, who wants to weigh in on this. So we'll do that right after this obscene profit time. Welcome back. America's real anchorman, Rush Limbaugh, and the EIB network, documented to be almost always right 99.8% of the time. Here's Doug in Clifton, Virginia. I'm glad you called, sir. Great to have you with us today. Hi.
Great. It's a pleasure to speak with you, Rush. So this is a thought. The question becomes, if our Attorney General here in Virginia, Mark Herring, resigns on his own, it allows Governor Northam to assign a new Attorney General. So if Northam and the Lieutenant Governor Fairfax are out, it prevents the fourth in line, who's a Republican, from getting in. So the new Attorney General, a Democrat appointed by Northam, would then be available to be in that position and prevent the Republican from taking the government.
Well, then why doesn't Northam simply do that? Why doesn't he just appoint himself Attorney General and resign? So that when it gets down, the other two people resign, he's back to being the governor.
Well, that may be, but Herring has already admitted his blackface mistake, so he could step down and make for an easier transition.
So you think what they're going to do, Northam's going to convince Herring to say, I'm out of there, so he can appoint somebody to replace him who would then become the new governor if Northam actually has to take the plunge off the plank.
If Northam has to take the plunge and Fairfax has to take the plank, or take the plunge.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that's a fascinating theory. Wouldn't put anything past them. But they are doing everything they can to save Fairfax. They are pulling out all the stops to save Fairfax. This woman that has accused Fairfax, she may not even as well as exist. And the way that the lawyer teams are set up, I mean, she's hired ballsy Ford's lawyers. She's hired Kavanaugh's lawyers. And Justin Fairfax has gone out there and hired ballsy Ford's lawyers. It's.
Well, I'm sure they're going to try to protect the Fairfax, but maybe they're going to promise Herring something on the side. If you step out on the side, we will make sure you have a position to step into.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. Well, I appreciate the heads up on that. I appreciate it very much, Doug. Thank you. Tom in Griffin, Georgia. Let's give you a shot at it. What's happening?
Hey, greetings, Rush. It is an honor. I think all this climate change, my brain's a little fuzzy, and I thought, Rush can help explain this to me. But I just want to know why the Democrats believe or don't believe the black professor, but they do or did believe the white professor. I thought maybe you could help explain that to me.
You want us to all believe that you're stumped by this. See, you want the host to step in it, answering the question. You don't want to do it yourself.
I don't mind doing it myself.
Oh, then go for it. You answer your own question.
Oh, okay. They're just two-faced liars. They have nothing to run on. Trump's doing a great job. Happy belated birthday to Ronald Reagan yesterday, and he would have been very proud of Trump's speech.
Let me tell you something. You swerved into something right there. Contrary to the way the media is portraying all these people, and you see 20 Democrats running and their agendas, they don't have anything to run on. And the things that they are putting out there that they want to run on, folks, I continue to be challenged to find the absolute best characterization of these people and their policies and their intentions, their motivations, their psychology. But they really don't have anything to run on. And right now, I don't think they have anybody. If you've got a party that is going to have a primary featuring 20 or more candidates, then it's safe to say that there's not one person around whom everybody on that party can coalesce, get behind, and propel. Now, you might say, well, Rush, Republicans were the same way in 2016. Exactly. Nobody knew it at the time, but that candidate was Trump. But the other 15, the other 16, there wasn't any single from the get-go front runner. We were told there was. We were told that it was Jeb because he had all the money, but that never materialized. And it wasn't until Trump got in the race and, 2 to 3 weeks and maybe a month in that the clarity on the Republican side became apparent. So they don't have anything to run on. They're flailing away. Adam Schiff has announced that his committee is going to be investigating Trump's finances going back decades because they are getting the idea Mueller doesn't have much of what they were hoping for. Anyway, they are looking like a big bunch of nothing right now as we look at them today. Back in a second.
You're listening.
Fastest 3 hours in media already, the first hour in the can, and we still have much to go with details on the proposal, the new Green Deal. Details are coming forth now. We'll have those for you when we get back. I got an email during the break. Could you explain what you said about Trump and making America great again and what he did? Let me take another stab at this, because I've gone back and thought about it, especially with what the Democrats have done since the State of the Union, how they reacted that night, which we documented and commented upon. I told you I think the structure of the State of the Union speech was genius, as in creating a standing ovation for paid family leave and then pivoting immediately to Democrat-promoted infanticide, and the Democrats not knowing when to applaud and when not to. But just the idea that, look at it from Pelosi's perspective. She's sitting there. She goes into the room, and she thinks it's her room. It's the House chamber. She's speaker. It's hers. President's there as an invited guest. She thinks he's an idiot and a doofus, an embarrassment. And she's just waiting for him to do some stupid, embarrassing thing. She just knows it's going to happen. Then he delivers the speech of a lifetime, perhaps one of the greatest State of the Union speeches ever. And she's behind him, and she's got the camera on her the whole time. And she can't go nuts. She can't even show very many facial expressions. She has to attempt, anyway, to be a model of decorum. And she had to be blowing up, sitting behind him, watching Democrats, women, giving Donald Trump a standing ovation on national TV. Democrat women in virginal white standing up and smiling and laughing along with Donald Trump. This was not in the script. This was not supposed to happen. There's no way under the sun. If anything, she was going to have to calm her people down and make sure they didn't boo, make sure they didn't start marching out in protest. That's what she was worried. The last thing that she ever figured was going to happen was that people on her side of the room were going to act and be seen on TV as actually approving of and supporting various Trump policies. So that, I think, when you saw her pick up the script, people joking, it looked like she had a menu from where she was going to go dinner afterwards, and she was choosing what she wanted from the menu. I think she was looking at text to the speech and trying to figure out, how much more time do I have to sit here? Is this thing about over, for crying out loud? I think she also used it as a tool to bury her face, because she had to be the epitome of shell-shocked and frustrated. She got outsmarted, She got outmaneuvered. She got outplayed. The never-Trumpers were beside themselves for the same reason. They're all expecting Trump to walk in there and make an absolute fool of himself. And he ends up with a bunch of Democrats literally in the palm of his hand. But here's the big deal on a grand scale, on a nationwide televised scale. The president defined Make America Great Again for what it really is. And in the process, he took back the narrative of the media on Make America Great Again. Make America Great Again, as far as the media and the left is concerned, is white privilege, white supremacy, returning to the days when minorities were essentially slaves. Make America Great Again is a throwback to when white people ran everything and were afraid of nothing. That's how the media's characterized it. Trump, on the other hand, defined it for what it is. And that was tremendous. He defined Make America Great Again as simply rebuilding America and taking it back from a bunch of people who don't believe in it, who don't like it, who don't trust it, and going back to the days of glory and greatness. And he illustrated this with his guests, the World War II heroes, the Holocaust survivor and the World War II hero from Normandy, reminding people of American greatness and pointing to people who helped make it happen. And so it wasn't just Trump's words. It was actions. It was things the Americans do. One of the most powerful moments of the speech, and it's tough to pick just one. But the Holocaust survivor is describing the average day, which was pure hell. And one day, and I'm paraphrasing here, one day things are especially bad. There's all kinds of ruckus. There's all kinds of noise. And it looks like that day is going to be the end. And then somebody shouts, "It's the Americans." It's the Americans that had arrived, and that was the ruckus. It was the Americans had arrived, and everybody was saved. Everybody was rescued. It's the Americans, they said. And the meaning was clear. Safety had arrived. Decency had arrived. We rescued had arrived. And it was simply a structure of our country that the left has been hell-bent on destroying, both historically and literally, for I don't know how many years. Misstatements about what America is, racist, sexist, bigot, homophobic. Trump properly defined Make America Great Again on a national stage. And so, meanwhile, here we have the left, and what are they running on? They're running on race, they're running on sex, they're running on print money, they're running on some phantom Green New Deal, while at the same time trying to hide all of their sexual abusers and blackface governors and blackface late-night comedians. There was a fabulous 180-degree turn. And it continues. Now, let's move on to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. From the, let's see, this is the Politico story. The Democrat Party's base is rallying around calls for massive social welfare programs like Medicare for All, a federal jobs guarantee, and a Green New Deal, all of which would cost trillions of dollars and potentially bust the budget. Yet, a small but growing chorus of progressives say that policymakers are thinking about deficits all wrong. Deficits? They're not that big a deal. Cortez told Business Insider last month the notion that the government needn't worry about balancing its books should be a larger part of our conversation. If we run out of money, we just print some, she says. We haven't had any money for a long time, and we're not going to let that stop us. We're not going to let people use the fact that we don't have the money stop us. So now we go to the audio soundbites. This was this morning on NPR's Morning Edition. Steve Inskeep was interviewing Cortez about the Green New Deal. First question, one reason people who are politically conservative are skeptical of efforts to combat climate change is that it sounds to them like it requires massive government intervention, which they just don't like. Are you prepared to put on the table that, yes, that they are right, that what this requires is massive government intervention?
It does. Yeah, I have no problem saying that. Why? Because we have tried their approach for 40 years. For 40 years, we tried to let the private sector take care of it. They said, we got this. We can do this. The forces of the market are going to force us to innovate, except for the fact that there's a little thing in economics called externalities. And what that means is that a corporation can dump pollution in the river and they don't have to pay for it, and taxpayers have to pay for cleaning up our air, cleaning up our water, and saving the planet. And so we've already been paying the costs, except we have not been getting any of the benefit.
Well, I really do think it's a shame what our country, what our education system, what whoever's responsible for it, what they've done to these people. This woman is trying to find a charitable way. She's just an ignoramus. She doesn't know what she doesn't know, and what she does know is so cockeyed that it's difficult to deal with it with a straight face. But the problem is she's not alone. It's widespread. A whole lot of people in her generation have bought into this silly notion. As far as she's concerned, the United States is responsible for climate change. As far as she's concerned, climate change is real, going to destroy the planet in another 30, well, in her case, 12 years. We've got 12 years. It's absolutely absurd. The whole thing intellectually, scientifically is absurd, and yet they buy it hook, line, and sinker. And now their proposals here, which we detailed, phase out air travel in the next 10 years. Government guaranteed job for all. Rebuild every single building in the USA. None of this is practical. Now, what they're going to say, what somebody in the Democrat Party is going to say to this, hey, I don't really believe all this. This is just the starting point. You know how negotiations work. You always ask for much more than you expect to get. You always put some throwaways in there. They don't really think they're going to ban air travel, and they don't really think they're going to destroy and rebuild every building. I understand the philosophy of asking for a lot more than you think you're going to get, but I do think these are true believers. And I think she really does believe the United States is the biggest failure, when in fact, if she would tour the world and look at any socialist country or country with tyranny, dictatorship, poverty, the degree of pollution, the environmental mess, China and India, the messes they make environmentally dwarf the United States, and yet none of her proposals would have anything to do with China or the United States. It's strictly an anti-American agenda here under false premise that we are the large guilty party in polluting. But even at that pollution is destroying the planet, that climate change is, it really kind of makes me sad. What has been done to these people? They go through life scared to death every day, literally thinking that there's something they can do to control climate, and that if they don't, they're going to die before they hit 65. Next question. You're talking about things, obviously, that cost a lot of money, and you don't specify where the money's going to come from, other than saying it'll all pay for itself.
Yeah, I think the first thing that we need to do is kind of break the mistaken idea that taxes pay for 100% of government expenditure. It's just not how government expenditure works. We can recoup costs, but oftentimes you look at, for example, the GOP tax cut, which I think was an irresponsible use of government expenditure, but government projects are often financed by a combination of taxes, deficit spending, and other kinds of investments, bonds.
Bonds. She just figured out that taxes, do not fully fund government. I mean, anybody that knows there's a deficit knows that. This is pointless. Now, the first thing we need to do is kind of break the mistaken idea that taxes pay for a 100% of government expenditure. Government expenditure is off the charts. There's nowhere near the tax revenue to support. It can't be with $21 trillion national debt, annual budget deficit of $400 to $800 billion. Anybody in the, that's the problem. You can't tax your way out of fiscal irresponsibility. Of course, to these people, the answer is simply print more money. Next question. I get that, but deficit spending is borrowing money. It has to be paid back eventually, somehow, like through taxes.
Yeah, and I think that is always the crux of it. So when we decide to go into the realm of deficit spending, we have to do so responsibly. We ask, is this an investment, or is this actually going to pay for itself?
So you're saying borrow the money, make the investment, the economy will grow, we'll pay off the debt.
Absolutely, because we're creating jobs.
You know, this woman has no idea what she just said. So he says, so you're saying borrow the money, make the investment, the economy will grow, we'll pay off the debt. Absolutely. Absolutely, because we're creating jobs. She just described the Trump tax cut, which in the previous bite, she tried to rip to shreds. The woman doesn't know what economic externalities are. She tried her best to use a word she thinks nobody knows. She botched that big time. She certainly does. She just doesn't know. But all of this belief system she has is predicated on a hoax that the planet is being destroyed by the American lifestyle. American progress is destroying the climate, and she's not going to be able to breathe the air in another 12 years. As I say, folks, I'm glad that this is happening. I'm glad they are announcing their proposals. I'm glad they are coming forth with what they think has to be done in order to save the planet. High-speed rail everywhere so that we don't need air travel anymore. Rebuild every American building after you tear them down. And who knows, whatever the hell else. I got to take a brief time out. We'll do that and be back and continue right after this. She named a new climate change committee, and Cortez is not on it. That is a huge slap. And here's Pelosi talking about, they've submitted their proposal. It's just a proposal, but they're dead serious about everything in it. And Pelosi was asked about the Green New Deal and if it is a useful baseline or not.
Quite frankly, I haven't seen it, but I do know that it's enthusiastic, and we welcome all the enthusiasms that are out there. We welcome the enthusiasm that is there. The Green New Deal points out the fact that the public is much more aware of the challenge that we face, and that is a good thing. And I welcome the Green New Deal and any other proposals that people have out there.
Meaning, I think it's a crock. I can't say that. It's a bunch of foolishness. I really like their enthusiasm, but I'm not going to put them anywhere where they can do anything about it. That's what this means. I haven't seen it. It's the most important thing in the world to these freshmen. These millennial freshmen, they're the most important thing, and the woman that runs the place hasn't seen it and proudly says so. I welcome all the enthusiasms that are out there. We welcome the enthusiasm that is there. The Green New Deal points out the fact the public is much more aware of the challenge that we've... If that's true, it doesn't mean that. The Green New Deal does not point out the fact the public is much more aware. The Green New Deal, if it's at all exposed for what it is going to shock the American people of what the left really intends to do to this country in order to deal with it. If I'm Pelosi, I've got to do everything I can to make sure this thing is not taken seriously as it is spread. I've got to do everything I can to make sure that nobody thinks this is the main primary Democrat Party agenda. This is a killer. This is a guaranteed landslide loss. If this is something that the Democrat presidential candidate or all these nominees adopt, Can you imagine on the campaign trail, Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders and all the rest of them arguing about who's going to be the first to cancel air travel in America? I'm going to make sure it happens in 10 years, says Bernie. Kamala Harris says, we can do better than that. We can cancel all jet air travel in 9 years. And then Beto O'Rourke weighs in and says, well, you know, I've done some SEAL team training, and we can substitute jet travel with jet packs. We can get everybody a jet pack and learn them how to fly these things. And then they'll start this debate on this crazy. And then when it comes time to get rid of every building. And which building in Washington will these people want to tear down first and rebuild? The White House, because that's where Trump is. And that, of course, will be where the greatest source of global climate change destruction is taking place. Let them start actually debating this in their prime. Pelosi's got to do something to make sure that these people are not openly disrespected, but that this thing can't become part of the Democrat Party platform. Now, you and I are hoping that it does. Sit tight. Back to the phones when we get back. I just stumbled across, I'm trying to move off of this, folks. I'm trying to move off, but I just stumbled across an actual excerpt from the Green New Deal. And this is in relationship, I didn't mention that they also have a plan to end cow farting in 10 years. Because cow farts are methane. Methane supposedly one of the most destructive gases to the atmosphere out there. And so I have this passage from the Green New Deal. We set a goal to get to net zero rather than zero emissions. Net zero rather than zero in 10 years. Because we aren't sure that we'll be able to fully get rid of farting cows and airplanes that fast. But we think we can ramp up renewable manufacturing and power production, retrofit every building in America, build the smart grid, overhaul transportation and agriculture, plant lots of trees, and restore our ecosystem to get to net zero in 10 years. Do you remember that I shared with you the story earlier that when it gets below zero, below 32 degrees and colder, that batteries begin to lose their efficiency? And when you approach 10 degrees, 5 degrees, batteries lose as much as 40% of their fully charged power. So what's that do to the range of your car if you're driving an electric car or anything else with a battery in it that's exposed to those temperatures, the inefficiency? By the same token, in real cold weather, outside of storms, wind is not nearly sufficient to drive all the windmills. In other words, during wintertime, folks, there simply is no way that alternative or renewable energy can even come close to maintaining the power grid as we know it. Now, I can't tell you how many times since I've been doing this program, I have told people that they want to get rid of cows. That the reason they tell people not to eat McDonald's is because of cow farting, and people look at me and think that I'm making it up, that I'm just being exaggerating so as to get people's attention. Now, Rush, come on. Nobody thinks they can control cow farts, and nobody thinks that cow farts are destroying the planet. And I say, yes, you got to hear me. They do. And then I've also said, if they're serious about this, they've got to get rid of jets. They have to get rid of what they say about jet engines and what they say about pollution in the upper atmosphere. They've got to get Rush, come on. These people don't think that. And now here they are in their own words. We're not sure we'll be able to fully get rid of farting cows and airplanes in 10 years, but we think we can ramp up renewable manufacturing and power production, retrofit every building in America. And here comes Kamala Harris. Exactly what I suggested is going to happen. These Democrat presidential candidates are going to get in on this. Kamala Harris has tweeted, I am a proud co-sponsor of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ed Markey's Green New Deal. We must aggressively tackle climate change, which poses an existential threat to our nation. When you put existential in there, it means it is dire. It means it is right now. Existential is one of those words that people real into have no clue what it means. And all you have to do to understand it, look at the word exist. Existential exists right now. An existential crisis. It's a big dressed up word that simply means it's real and it's now. It's not down the road. So here comes, I guess, what is now the front runner, Kamala Harris. I am proud to co-sponsor your effort to get rid of farting cows and airplanes in 10 years. I think some of our prayers are being answered here, folks. It may not look like it right now. And by the way, a lot more people than you think are going to be cheering this. Don't let that depress you. There's a bunch of young millennial people that think this is exactly what's necessary. You don't know how scared they are. You don't know how scared they have been made. You do not know the literal existential fear they face every day over the end of the planet. It is why they cheer a story from the Chicoms that they say they successfully grew seeds on the moon. I'm making this up. They cheered that story because that means we can colonize the moon now. We don't have to go to Mars to save ourselves. And now we can grow seeds on the moon. That means we can live, we can survive, we can move beyond Earth. You know who I hold partially responsible for this? It's none other than the one, Barack Hussein O. He promoted this crap. He utilized it to the best of his ability. He by authorizing that silly speech he made after he won a primary, this was the day the sea levels began to come down, or whatever it was he said. Irresponsible. But I think Obama is at the root of so many. He's at the root of the Mueller investigation, that whole hoax on Russia collusion. He is single-handedly responsible for promoting this hoax of climate change. Back to the phones. I've said that. Let's do it. Roland, Pittsburgh, you're next. Glad you waited, sir. Welcome to the EIB Network. Hi.
Raj, thanks so much.
You bet.
I wanted to take you back to the situation here in Virginia. I was listening to her reading Larry Sabato this morning, and he believes that one or more of these gentlemen may survive the scandal. So I wanted to get your take on this. What do you think the public perception will be if the two gentlemen wearing blackface survive this, while the lieutenant governor, who just happens to be black, gets thrown overboard?
You know what? That's going to largely depend on the media. And I hate having to acknowledge that. But if the media decides that Justin Fairfax is expendable in order to save the party at large, meaning if it's better to get rid of the lieutenant governor than the governor, and if that's less damage for the party at large, then I think they'll throw him overboard. Now, right now, it doesn't look that. Right now, it looks like that's the guy they're trying to save. They're doing everything they can to accuse the accuser of being a liar, that she is not credible, and so forth. They're putting everything they believe upside down. Woman is always telling the truth, they told us. The woman doesn't lie, except this one is. So they're going to make a calculation. Can they survive? Can the party survive with a governor who's got a yearbook picture out there that can be used anytime the Republicans want in an ad of him in blackface? And can the media be criticized for helping to support him and help him stave off the effort to resign? My guess is, in your scenario, if I had to guess, I'd think they'd try to push Northam out and save Fairfax.
No, I understand. I would say the Attorney General would have to go at that point as well. But as you said earlier, Fairfax is really deep in this.
He is. But I think when you look at the Democrats, the way the media looks at this stuff, okay, the way they look at this, you got two guys wearing blackface. And forget that old Northam was out there talking about making baby comfortable before you wipe them out. That's not even on the story. That's been so covered up. That's not even part. This is all about blackface. So the media and their brothers in the Democrat Party have to decide what is the more survivable. And I have to say, if the Democrats resort to history, they'd have to tell themselves, we can survive a candidate who has abused women, because we've had a president, we had two presidents, JFK and Clinton, and they both loved and adored. So they would say, we can save Fairfax. Sexual abuse, abusing women, that's something Democrats are known for. That's a resume enhancement in many ways, Democrat Party. But the blackface, that's messing with what the scam we're running on race. We can't be seen to be doing everything we can to maintain these guys that were wearing blackface, appearing in minstrel shows, pretending to make fun of Negro. We can't, oh, no way. My guess that they're going to decide that they don't want any part of guys wearing blackface, but the guy that does the sexual abuse, why, he's one of us. He's a Democrat. He's a real Democrat. We need to do everything we can to save that. Talent on loan from God. It's Rush Limbaugh and the EIB Network. Here is Austin in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm glad you called, sir. Hi.
Thank you, Dr. Limbaugh. It is an honor to speak with you.
Well, I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you so much. Yes.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll get right to my point. I'm a millennial. I'm 24. I work 3 jobs, and I'm working towards a master's degree. And I know what it's like to work hard. And President Trump the other night, he did such a fabulous job with his State of the Union address. And he was talking about the American dream. And I was telling your call screener that the reason liberals are so miserable, and a lot of times it's millennials. I look on social media, I look in common media outlets, and they're so miserable, is because they don't take advantage of this American dream. And you've spoken before about being a victim. And I don't want to be victimized by anybody, because that means that someone has to save me. And then I owe them something because they're saving me and they're providing everything I need for my life. And I just think it's really sad, but I'm a millennial who has hope for the future. I don't think that the planet is going to be destroyed in 12, 15, 50 years. And I'm just excited about life. And I think that's a nice change of pace probably for my generation.
I wish more of your generation adopted that attitude. And also, you have noticed you can't escape the misery and the anger and the rage, and now the fear that has affected, and certainly not everybody, but I mean it's affected way too many young people. It's just, it's really a shame. You know what? Something you talked about victimology. I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's another aspect of victimology that I need to make clear, and it is a crucial element in all this. The left has sought to make as many people think they are victims of. Listen, look, when we talk about victims of who? Victims of what? Well, in the modern incarnation of victimology, the bad guys are white people, and primarily white men. Not just the patriarchy, not just white male leaders. When I say white male patriarchy, I'm referring to, descendants of the founding fathers. But the age-old majority in this country has been white people, white men. And since the target of the left now is the country at large and its injustice and its immorality, its unjustifiable existence. America doesn't deserve to exist because of the way it was founded. It was founded enshrining racism and slavery, for example. And there's no amount of fixing that will fix any of this. because you can't go back and erase the way the country was founded. Since the country was founded as a flawed and unjust system, it must be toppled. And that's become the modern mantra and objective of the left. So they victimize as many people as they can. I firmly believe that these women in the House all wearing white that stood up cheering when Trump talked about how many of them have been elected, I think that's the result of them feeling like victims and that they have overcome all of these unfair obstacles that this country put in their way just because they're women. And so everybody thinks they were applauding themselves, and maybe they were in part, but what really was going on, a bunch of people who think they have been victimized. But here is the added benefit of being a victim. In addition to not being responsible for anything that you've done or not done, in addition to being blameless, in addition to not having to have any ambition, because when you're a victim, as the Democrats have created them and assigned them, it's impossible for you to succeed because the obstacles in your way are too great. You face rampant, constant discrimination. There's nothing you can do. So you are a perpetual victim. You're angry. You are enraged. But, and I first learned of this by listening to none other than the great Reverend Jackson. Somebody asked him once, he was spouting some really hateful stuff about white people back in the late 80s, early 90s, back during his heyday. And somebody said, Reverend Jackson, isn't that a bit racist? And he said, no, black people can't be racist. They don't have the power to enforce their racism, so black people can't be racist. I said, wait. This means more than that. What it actually means is that any victim cannot be accused of being a victimizer, meaning no woman who is an acknowledged victim can be accused of practicing sexism. If you are a minority and if you are a victim of racism or sexism or bigotry or homophobia, then you have a license to behave any way you want and to say about anybody anything you want. You can't be accused of racism as a victim because you, as a victim, don't have any power to do anything with your racism. And so you have a free lunch. You can slander and libel anybody you want, and nobody is going to call you on it. Because you're a victim. You have been mistreated. You have been disadvantaged. You have been discriminated against. And all you're doing is fighting back. All you're doing is returning fire. All you're doing is trying to defend yourself. And since as a victim you are powerless, there are no standards governing your behavior. And this is relevant in terms of the media. This is why left-wing Jeremiah Wright, Obama's preacher, was never held to account for anything he said. He could say anything he wanted because he was a victim. It was understandable that he was enraged. It was understandable he would think when the Twin Towers fell, all right, America's chickens are coming home to roost. You can't criticize victims, folks, and they can say whatever they want about you. I have an audio soundbite here from Spike Lee that's going to prove a central point that I made yesterday about the country being unjust from the beginning. Go at eibnet.us. Do you have that tune handy? Not the bumper, but the tune. You have it handy right at this moment, or do you need to find it on the Prophet system? Okay, as soon as you find it, let me know, and I'll delay what I was going to say about it. Grab audio soundbite number 7. I have been focusing the past 2 days on the real objectives of the left, and I think it's important to know what really is propelling and fueling this move to socialism and this unmistakable anti-Americanism that they now proudly own. And a lot of us have been mistaken. We haven't taken it far enough. We think that the opposition, the left has, that they mount today is due to modern-day conservative successes. Ronald Reagan, the modern-day Republican Party. They can't stand Donald Trump. And while all of that is true, it really doesn't explain why the left has been as they have been for decades now. And it really does trace back to the fact, folks, that they think the country is illegitimate because of our founding. They do not think anything about America is well, not anything, but very little of what you and I consider to be traditionally great American institutions and so forth. They discount them because to them the founding was immoral, as evidenced by the fact that slavery was legal during the nation's founding. The fact that it's been fixed, the fact that it's been ended counts for nothing. The fact that there have been advances in women's rights galore, the fact that there have been massive changes in America for civil rights and minority rights, none of it matters. This is the key. None of it matters. Nobody gets any credit for it. The reason is the left doesn't want to modify America as founded. It wants to trounce it. It wants to obliterate it. The reason why slavery being ended with the Civil War is not anything to be happy about is because it doesn't erase the fact that the nation was founded with slavery. The fact that women got the vote in the late 1800s doesn't mean anything. Women's rights, Roe versus Wade, equal pay, none of it really matters because the nation was founded with all that injustice and all of that immorality. And so the objective is to totally transform America into something fresh and brand new that it's never been, so that it will be clean and pure with no injustices enshrined. And so this is really what is propelling them. And it gives them the opportunity of never being satisfied, that no amount of cooperation is ever enough. No amount of working together, compromising, solving problems, never enough, because we can't fix the original sin that this country's founding was. And so it's got to be something brand new from the get-go, socialist, communist, whatever. But it has got to be destroyed. It's got to be transformed. Well, I can probably assure you that many people thought I was going a little far in that explanation. Not as many as I thought, but I still got, come on, Russ, that's taking it a little. No, the more I think about it, the more I think it does explain why you can't compromise, why doesn't this country ever get any credit for ending slavery, for the role that we've played in ending slavery? I mean, zilch. In fact, it gets worse. Despite the prices that have been paid, now it's a demand for reparations. And if reparations were paid, that would simply open the door to some new demand. There is no affirmative action, no end to it. You ask people at the beginning of affirmative action, okay, well, how much of this reverse discrimination, how much reverse racism is it going to take to fix what you think is wrong? Well, never. You can't fix it. What? You can't fix it. I actually had the activists for affirmative action tell me this 40 years ago. You can't fix it. You can't even make amends for it. You can't fix it. So why? Because it happened. You can't erase it. But I thought all of this was the purpose was to, yeah, it's a good purpose, but you can't fix it. Meaning there is no happiness. There is no solution to anything. There is no solving any liberal grievance. And it's futile to try. That's the thing that the modern-day Republican Party will never understand. The never-Trumpers will never understand. It's ridiculous to try to solve things because they cannot ever be satisfied, because their objective is not what they claim to want today. Their objective is to totally transform and realign and rebuild the United States. And I have a soundbite here that will go a long way toward indicating that that is true. It's Sanderson Cooper, 360, and he's talking to the famed movie director Spike Lee about the blackface scandal in Virginia. And Anderson Cooper says, hey, Spike, tell us about the history of blackface.
It's not a good part of American history, and came out of vaudeville minstrels, performers, mostly white, would darken up and perform skits. It's hatred. It's pure hatred, and this is part of who we are in America. We're in the year 2019, and 400 years ago, 1619, the first slaves were brought to Jamestown, Virginia.
You see, 400 years ago, the first slaves were brought to Jamestown, Virginia, and you still got Governor Northam and his pals running around in blackface. See, it never ends. It never gets solved. And did you hear him say, it's pure hatred? This is part of who we are in America. This is what America is. So a long way toward proving my point. Now, Maud Behar, back in 2016 on The View, showed a picture of herself dressed up for Halloween one year when she was 29 years old as a, quote, beautiful African woman. And they flashed the picture up there. And she made a point of saying, that's not a wig that I'm wearing, it's my hair. I don't have the photo here to show you. I'm just telling you, it doesn't look like Maud Behar. It doesn't even come close. But they were talking of this is 3 years ago. But listen to them talking about it.
You know, this picture.
Joy, is that you?
Yeah.
Joy,
no, I know. That is me.
Oh my word. What year is this? Circa
I
what?
was 29. It was a Halloween party. I went as a beautiful African woman.
Oh, yes, you ain't black. Did you have tanning lotion on?
I had makeup that was a little bit darker than my skin.
What is it with these people? So Maud Behar obsessed with being a beautiful black woman and describes how she did it. And let's go back, February 10th, 2002, Comedy Central, The Man Show. None other than Jimmy Kimmel impersonating Karl Malone of the NBA.
Sometime at night, Karl Malone look up in the sky and say, what the hell going on up there? Do UFO live on other planet, phoning home like E.T.? Karl Malone read on TV about white people getting deducted by alien. Now, Karl Malone never seen no flying saucer himself, but if he do, that's going to be a spooky time.
You wonder why Jimmy Kimmel and some of these other late-night clowns are not even talking about Governor Northam and the blackface photo in the yearbook. Not even talking, because these people all have done it themselves. There's something about leftists. Look at Rachel Dolezal running around as white as anything you can imagine, saying that she's black. And these people all dressing up in blackface, doing minstrel shows, and Maud Behar doing it, and Governor Northam and these people, all at the same time ranting and raving about what a bunch of racist pigs we conservatives are. They don't even want to talk about their own past. Ladies and gentlemen, I found this somewhat interesting. In our bumper rotation is a 40-year-old song, and I have noted it practically every time it comes up in the rotation. It's Prison Colonnade Sinacuso by an Italian artist named Celentano. Adriano Celentano. Well, it turns out that NPR decided to do a miniature profile on this song. And I'm wondering, how and why did NPR ever hear about this? Now, I know that NPR has people monitoring this program, and they occasionally translate this program for the NPR audience so that NPR audience members can know what conservatism sounds like. I'm wondering if they heard me play the tune in the bumper rotation and talk about it, and they went out and looked it up. I first became aware of the song. It was played in one of these, it was a TV show, I forget the network, on the kidnapping of J. Paul Getty's grandson. And Hilary Swank is playing the mother of the kidnapped kid, and she's in some little Italian Matchbox car driving around Rome, and this song is on the radio. And I said, whoa, what is that? I'm always looking for bumper music. And the closed captioning, I Shazammed it is what I did. I got, because the closed captioning had this weird looking word. There was no way that it was accurate, I thought. So I Shazammed it, and I came up with the song. So we set about finding it, and there's a history behind it. Adriano Celentano had a major tough time learning English. He just couldn't learn it. He thought it was the weirdest, oddest language. So he recorded a song that is supposed to be what English sounds like to people who don't speak it. It's 40 years old this week, I think, is the anniversary of the song. It was a huge hit in Italy and nowhere else. And he sings it, and the lyrics mean nothing. He literally ad-libbed this and just created lyrics, words, sounds. There are not even any words in this thing. And I wanted to just play it, share a little bit of, because I find it fascinating that this is what this guy claims English sounds like to him. Let me try hitting the slate. What, hold it a minute, hold it. What version of this do you have? Okay. Mr. Engineer, what version of... Okay, the classroom intro. Okay, well, go ahead and hit it. Let's see if it's... Okay, that's enough of it. Are you sure that's Adriano Celentano doing that? Because that sounds like a version I have. Sounds like a cover version. All right. Well, anyway, it's 40 years old. It's starting to get some acclaim, and I'm just telling you it's getting acclaim because we put it in the bumper rotation here about a year ago. I don't think anybody would have ever heard of this tune if we hadn't done that. Now it's getting a lot of acclaim, 40 years old, but I find it fascinating. There's no words. He ad-libbed all that. There aren't any words. They've even publicized what are the lyrics, and it's senseless. All based on what he thinks English sounds like to people who don't speak it. We have time to grab a call before the first break in the hour, and it's Laura in Louisville. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hi.
Oh, my goodness, Rush. I've been waiting since 1996 to talk to you.
Well.
As a matter of fact, I have two phone numbers memorized, and one is my husband, and the other is 1-800-282-2882. So I'm going to get to what my point is. What I don't understand is why so many people do not see what hypocrites the Democrats, and AOC is at the top of that list. She tells kids to shop at thrift stores while wearing $3,000 suits. When are people going to realize that being a socialist means do as I say and not as I do? I'm trying to start my own business. This has nothing to do with AOC and hypocrisy, but one day you said that you were trying to give away your iPhone, your new iPhone. So if you have a spare iPad Pro or iPhone, I would love it to help with my business. Anyway, but back to the hypocrisy of the Democrats. I don't get it. I don't understand why people don't see it.
Well, there's an interesting thing. I was just talking about this the other day. In the history of the world, there is not a single success story associated with socialism. Socialism has never worked. It has never gotten close to working. It's just the exact opposite. Socialism is an unmitigated disaster. It is the gateway to full-fledged communism, which also doesn't work. And by doesn't work, I mean it utterly fails in the promises it makes to people. Socialism promises utopia, and all it delivers is misery. The thing is, it's not theoretical. It's not as though we have to grab hold of people and persuade them with our words. We just have to point them to places. Point them to Venezuela. Point them to Cuba. Point them to any number of places in world history where socialism has been tried and where it has never succeeded. It's never even gotten close. And yet there remains a romantic attachment to it when people who believe in it think it's just not been tried by the right people, or we just haven't really had enough money. It's one of the most amazing psychological phenomenon to me that something that is so provably dangerous and bad and threatening can remain so romantically reachable and hopeful. It's going to take. I have no idea how to convince people. They want it so badly. They want utopia so badly that whatever hasn't worked, it can work. It can work if we do it, if we have the right amount of money. I got to take a break. I'm a little long.
In
We'll
the
be
February
back.
issue of a Limbaugh Letter, meet the young, hard-charging conservative who founded the National Student Organization.
Try this story here, folks. This is from the Eater.com. It's a trade website about restaurants. Panera's utopic pay-what-you-want restaurant dream is dead. Do you remember this experiment? There was a Panera Bread decided 9 years ago to introduce pay-what-you-can restaurants in several U.S. cities. And they're closing the last one down on February 15th in Boston because it just didn't work. The chain opened its first donation-based community cafe in St. Louis in 2010. Under the model championed by the company's founder, the restaurant operated like a typical Panera, but offered meals at a suggested donation price with the goal of raising awareness about food insecurity. What is food insecurity? In the old days, we would call it hunger. Food insecurity is fear of not having enough food when you want some. So the whole experiment was a test of humanity, said the founder. Would people pay for it? Would people come in and pay a fair price for what we were providing? And the answer was you don't even know the test to know the answer. The test was a resounding no. If you're going to give me food, I'm going to take it. Screw you getting paid for it. Oh, man, this is just too good. Cookie, I just saw it on CNN. They had Ocasio-Cortez and the aging Ed Markey at a press conference announcing the details of the Green New Deal. And I don't know that I'm going to have time to fully get into it today, but you got to have that video tomorrow. Because she gets up and says, we have time to innovate, we just do this, we save the planet, we save America, save American soldiers, we save the world. And Markey gets up, we need to create the biggest job creation for blue-collar workers in a generation, and that's what we're going to. I'm sitting here watching this. It's happening right now, you doomcoffs, and it's called the Trump economy. The Trump economy is creating more jobs than you people have ever seen. The Trump economy is creating more manufacturing jobs. It's got higher wages. People are being bonused. These people are talking about the country as though we're near soup kitchen status for everybody when it's the exact opposite. I've never seen a group of people who are so out of touch and they're so poisoned with their hatred for Trump that they're beyond rational. It's going to take a lot of effort on my part to be restrained reacting to this stuff. I'm just telling you. Hey, folks, we have a new sponsor, and I cannot wait to tell you about this. As you know, tech is my hobby, and I am always excited to be able to share something with you. It's not, in this case, not really new, but now it is accessible. How many of you will take your laptop or an iPad tablet or a phone, head into a public place like a coffee shop, and they've got free Wi-Fi in there, and you sit down and you turn on and you start streaming, watching, whatever, on the free Wi-Fi. And you've heard people say, that's really not secure, Rush. There's all kinds of bad actors, people actually in the cafes waiting to trick you to gain access to your machine or your device to be able to gain access to the contents of your device. In addition, I was playing with it yesterday afternoon. You can actually route your connection through servers all over the world. I connected to a server in the Czech Republic, so anybody who was trying to track down where I was would think I was in the Czech Republic. I could have put myself in St. Petersburg. You can, using Norton VPN, to give you an example, you can go to Italy with your American Netflix account and log on and connect to Netflix, because you can connect through an Italian server. And you can choose whichever server you want to connect to. You can do it for fun, you can do it for security or what have you. But imagine a pipe that contains the connection from your device to the internet, and you're the only thing in the pipe. That's what this does, whether you're in public Wi-Fi or not. And let me tell you how inexpensive this is. $3 a month. $3 a month, a little bit more, maybe $3.33 a month. And for that, you can protect 5 different devices, starting with your laptop, your computer, your phones, your tablets. But it keeps you private. You sign up online at norton.com/VPN. Norton.com/VPN. And I'm sure if you've got an iPhone and you've looked in the Wi-Fi connection, the settings, you've seen VPN and you've tapped on it and then nothing happens because you don't know what a VPN is. You don't know how to create one. There's all kinds of sham VPNs too. Some of these thieves have actually created a VPN that they sell you under the same premise of this one, but actually it's just a connection to their server. Norton never sees anything anybody is doing on their VPN network. It literally is a connection that is independent and invisible. It includes encryption as well. So if you happen to use public Wi-Fi or if you are concerned about being hacked, Norton VPN is the answer. At least check it out. $3.33 a month. I mean, it's certainly worth the time to look at it. Online, norton.com/VPN. John in Central New Jersey. Great to have you, sir. You're next on the EIB network. Hello.
Yes, hi, Rush. My question is, the United States during World War II funded all World War II by selling war bonds. Now, couldn't President Trump sell wall bonds to fund the wall?
Well, yeah, but see, you're talking again about what was a unified effort. You know, I'm going to use your call as a transition back to socialism to try to make a point. Yeah, if we were unified behind the wall, and if we didn't have the money, or if we wanted to raise an independent supply of money, then we would sell wall bonds. And if we're going to treat this as a similar kind of national security effort that World War II was, then, yeah, but we're not unified behind this. And you might say, well, then people don't have to buy them. Yeah, but you'd have to get a lot of cooperation in creating the bonds and so forth. And believe me, if that's an option, it has been looked at. And I'm telling you that Trump really wants to get this done by virtue of a negotiated deal. He wants there to be a sense of unified purpose about this. He really doesn't want to have to do this national emergency business. But I think he's prepared to. I know that he doesn't want to do that. I know it's a last option. But just because he doesn't want to doesn't mean he won't. But let's take the example. I want to go back to socialism and why it is so difficult to prove to people that it is a mistake. That not only is a mistake, it doesn't even come close to meeting its promises. And the evidence is all around us. The evidence has been around us since the beginning of humanity. You can go to any society that has attempted to create a utopia, and they've called it socialism or fascism or communism or whatever it is, and not a one of them have worked. Now, today's young millennials will say, well, wait a minute. California works. California, I hear you people all saying California's socialist and it works. Okay. Let me concede the point for a second. California is socialist, and it works. However, there's a big difference between California and Venezuela. California is not a nation. California is a state. California benefits from the resources and the bounty and the work and the effort of the entire country. It's not isolated. And even at that, California is becoming one of the biggest have and have-not states in our country. California has a homeless problem. San Francisco has a feces in the street problem. The problems in California are, you're not supposed to acknowledge them, you're not supposed to talk about them, but they are legion. They are growing. You have in California, in most places in the cosmopolitan areas where people want to live, you can't afford to live where you work. So you have a commute that is minimum hours. And it's getting worse, and it's been trending that way. And California also is a microcosm. California is a one-party state because of illegal immigration. Republican Party doesn't even exist for all practical purposes. But if California were not attached to the United States and did not benefit from the resources of the rest of the country, if California had to provide all its own oil, they don't. They don't allow drilling, just like Venezuela decided to get rid of it. California doesn't allow a whole lot of farming, not as much as they used to. California's environmentalist wackos have shut down so much. The price of gasoline and fuel is out the rocket, and they're trying to do everything they can to limit fossil fuels, but they benefit from the fact they can go ahead and do these nutcase policy institutions and still be able to access. Where do you think California gets its water? Southern California. Where do you think California gets its electricity? If California ceased to be a state, and if it were a standalone floating nation, I guarantee you nobody would want to move there. It would become Venezuela as fast as Venezuela became Venezuela. But you have to convince young little millennials of that truth. They look at California and they say, wow, it's all liberals, it's all Democrats, Hollywood is there, and Silicon Valley, man, oh man, it's utopia. Yeah, well, take California out of the United States like Venezuela is, and it would soon become Venezuela. But that'd be a difficult thing to persuade them. Take a break and be back after this.
This thing we call life, it'll warm you like the sunshine from the sky above, but one day turns cloudy, a change brings the rain, then comes the sorrow followed by pain. Others just won't try. You can face it like Alyssa or Carol Baccarat, but they'll never know the passion so deep in the soul. Love is a gift from which everything flows. Some people will find it, others just won't try. You can face it like a lesson, or you can curl up and cry. But you'll never know the passion so deep in your soul. 'Cause love is a gift from which everything flows. Love is a gift from which everything flows. You guys are awesome. Thank you. God, I love y'all.
Lord, I just don't know what shape I'm in, but I know to just keep trying. Try and find my own way out now. Try and find a way to clear my head. Try and see what my eyes can't see. Try and feel what my heart can't feel. Another mistake, another mountain I can't climb, another wall up try and find my own way out now. Try and find a way to clear my head. I gotta keep on trying. 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 The help me along. Keep on trying.
Black as night, cold as ice. She left me. She didn't think twice. I tried to stop her. Lord knows that I tried. If her love for me is dead, the blues ain't never gonna die. Night is gone, the daylight's here. I'm hurting bad, I'm not thinking clear. I think I'll go out, and take a ride. If a love for me is dead, you know the blues ain't never gonna die, no. Can't put up her pictures, her little guy things, and every time you know that my telephone rings and it's not her, you know I sit right down and I cry. If her love for me is dead, y'all,
It's another original. This is written by Marlon Brando. We got a house that's real nice. Got a great big dog that don't bite. I got a car, a real big star, and everybody treats me right. I got all these things, but I just can't seem to move you. I got a man, a handsome man. Ain't no place I ain't been. They got a pub, I've been in love. Try and keep my waistline thin. I got all these things, but I just can't seem to move you. Make your day. I'm down on my knees, I got a tear in my eye. Don't think you wanna see a grown man cry. Got a boat, got a plane. Everybody knows my name around the world, and all the girls. When it comes to you, I'm completely insane. I got all these things, I just can't seem to move you. Appreciate it.
Times that I don't know how to stop. All the changes that you put me through, just let my heart drop. I never knew that a love like this could come with so much pain. Now I'm gonna cut you loose and it won't happen again, boy, because I ain't gonna be a fool for you no more. Just listen to the sound of love walking out the door. Well, if more things change, just hold on. But you've been getting away with this, babe, for far too long. Now I'm gonna cut you loose and you won't hurt me again. As soon as I shake off the chains of love, I won't be hurting again. Because I ain't gonna be a fool for you no more. Just listen to the sound of love walking out the door. Well, the more things change, they just stay the same. Your love is ice cold to the core. And I ain't gonna be a fool for you no more.
chance have I got? That's what I'm talking about, y'all. So I took her down to the courthouse, and I made that girl stand trial. Prosecutor said she gotta be guilty. Just look at that pretty smile. Then she turned to the jury, and she started to testify. Lord, have some mercy on me. There's a tear in the judge's eye, and you kill me, babe. Shot me down in cold, cold blood. Cold, cold blood. Buses of money, call the police. I've been murdered, shot down on a cold, cold ground, holding my chest where my heart used to beat, through the front, not the back. Let me mother to cover her track. Girl walked out the door and didn't even look back, y'all. I've been murdered by love. Cold, cold girlfriend. Thank you, everybody. We are the Blues Boys.
Oh, how I tried to get it right. A week, maybe two, then back for the next night. A vicious lie, a commanding rule. Thought I was hip, I'm just another fool. A vicious lie, a commanding rule. Thought I was hip, I'm just another fool. Time after time I let it slide. Hey, I'm okay, got nothing to hide. A vicious lie, a commanding rule. Thought I was hip, I'm just another fool. A vicious lie, a commanding rule. Thought I was hip, I'm just another fool. I'm a fool, baby. I'm a fool. A fool. A fool. You're a fool. Man can live his life with a vice. You gotta stand tall, baby, fight for life. No one to blame in my own damn fault. The harder I try, the harder I fall. And baby, I fall. A vicious lie, a commanding rule. Thought I was hip, I'm just another fool. A vicious lie, a commanding rule. Thought I was hip, I'm just another fool. A vicious lie, a commanding rule. Thought I was hip, I'm just another fool. A vicious lie, a commanding rule. Thought I was hip, I'm just another fool. I'm a fool for you. I'm a fool, baby. I'm a fool for you, for you, for you, for you, baby. Baby, I'm always gonna be your fool.
Back in 1941, I was born in Chicago. Back in 1941, and my father, yes, he told me, son, you better get a gun. Now my first friend went down when I was 17 years of age. Don't you know we gotta pray? Yeah, you gotta pray. Don't you know it's time to go? Yeah, it's time to go. Let's go. Play the game. Yeah, rules are right. And then someone left to play the game. Well, my friends keep disappearing, baby. Things don't seem the same. They don't seem the same.
take pity on the city folks who know she don't mind. Now she don't really mind. She left the city about a month ago. She's taking her time, she's taking it slow. What's up ahead, baby, she don't know. She don't really mind. She looks like she's happy, even when she's blue. Thinking about the city she once knew. She don't mind. Oh, she don't really mind. About a month ago, taking her time, she's taking it slow. What's up ahead, baby, she don't know. She don't really mind. Back there in the city, with drugs and gangs and crime, people live half crazy all the time. She don't mind. No, she don't really mind. Country, people still complain. The road gets kind of muddy when it rains. She don't mind. Well, she don't really mind. No, she don't mind. She don't really mind.
going, man. Come on home, I can't hold on. Baby, can't hold on. I got a real funny feeling talking to you on the phone. She said, Daddy, don't you worry, it's my heart's desire. Love you pretty, baby, until the day I die. I can't hold on. Baby,
Well, I'm going down where the crawfish creep, where the gumbo's fine and the beer floats cheap. The music is jamming on every street. She gonna meet me in the quarter with a gleam in her eye. We're gonna dance all night under moonlit sky. Take a carriage to the river, watch the clouds roll by. Lord, there's a crescent moon. I've just got a few more miles. I'm gonna see my Cajun queen. She's the girl with the crescent smile. We could hop a steamer on a sunny day, listen to Dr. John and Elmore James. Let the good old Mississippi wash our troubles away. I said I'm gonna take it easy the rest of my days. Let that old rat race go its own way. I'll find a good fishing hole and a guitar to play. Come on, boys, let's play. Lord, there's a crescent moon. I've just got a few more miles. I'm gonna see my Cajun queen. She's the girl with the crescent smile. That's right. I'm gonna see my Cajun queen, the girl with the crescent smile. Said love, love my baby, sweet love, love my baby, sweet love, my baby. Baby, love my baby, 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 my baby.
Grandma's playing her accordion.
you just don't see who your next lover is gonna be. It's gonna be me, and you're lucky. But then so am I. Ooh, 'cause I finally found me somebody I can keep warm at night. It's funny, but you just don't see. The road you've been taking leads to me, and there's a sun in the sky. Ooh, and it's shining, find my way back. Gotta find my swampy home. Gotta find my way back. Back to the swamp where I belong. Been gone such a long time. Mama, I'm coming home. Been gone such a long time. Mama, I'm coming home. Gotta find my way back. Gotta find my Louisiana home. Gotta find my way back. Way down south where I belong. Been 10 years in prison. Mama, I'm coming home. Where the bodies in the swamp are hidden. Mama, I'm coming home. No, I took the money. I took the money and I hid it good. No, I took the money, buried it deep out in them woods. 10 years in prison. Mama, I'm coming home. Where the bodies in the swamp are hidden. Mama, I'm coming home. Gotta find my way back. Gotta find my swampy home. Gotta find my way back. Deep in the swamp where I belong. Been gone such a long time. Mama, I'm coming home. Been gone such a long time. Mama, I'm coming home. Oh yeah. Get that crawfish pie ready, Mama. And that dilly gone. You don't know what I've been eating.